Julianne Jackson, welcome to Team Trek Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. So before we get into this, I want to just kind of bring the audience in with where you're from, how all this got started, before we get into kind of the crux of the Ranger School and being the first and only female RI, which still blows my mind. But anyway, so take us back. Where did this all begin?
So I'm from Starkville, Mississippi. It's a really small town kind of in central Mississippi. Basically born and raised. I had zero plans to join the Army. So this was something that I really had no idea I'd end up doing. If you'd have told me this, back when I was a kid or when in college, I would have thought you were crazy. Didn't even know this type of job existed. But I joined I've been in the Army for about 8 years now, and I joined my senior year of college. I enlisted my senior year of college.
Okay. And you said this wasn't even on the radar when you were a kid. Okay, so tell me what was life like as a kid growing up in, say it again, was it Starkville? Starkville,
yeah. Home of Mississippi State University, which is where my alma mater is, where I went to college. I'm the second oldest of 6 kids. So there's a really big family, and I was homeschooled up until the 9th grade. In the 9th grade, I started going to Starkville Academy, which is a private school in town. And I basically went there to play sports. So I played softball, I played basketball. And so I spent my high school years there. And then I went to Mississippi State University for all 4 years of my college experience.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. So you said you were the second youngest?
Second oldest.
Second oldest.
Yeah, second oldest.
4?
Of 6.
6.
Really large family.
How did I miss that? Okay, so second oldest of 6.
Of 6 kids. Yeah.
Okay, so what was that age range then?
So my oldest sister is 35, and then my youngest brother, 35 now, and then my youngest brother is, I think, this is 6 of us. Sometimes it's hard to keep up with birthdays. I get that. But I think he's 21 or 22 years old.
So about a 14-year difference between oldest and youngest.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. That's not that bad.
Yeah, I have an older sister. There's myself, and then I have 2 more sisters and 2 more brothers. So we never really hurt for friends or for, the playmates when we were growing up, because we all homeschooled. My mom homeschooled us all up until certain ages. So I left to go to school in the 9th grade, and then my brother followed me a little bit earlier, and then so forth and so on with all the children that were below me, basically. And I think that that's something I credit my parents a lot with. The characteristics and the work ethic that they instilled in us, because they really gave us a really great foundation. And I have relied on that foundation so much as I've gotten older and done all the things that I have done. There's no way I would have been able to do it without the example that my parents gave me, because they were both very, very hard workers, very patient. And I don't think I got the same patience. I'm still working on that. But they put so much effort into us as children, and that foundation has never, ever failed me whatsoever. So I'm pretty much accredit them to everything that I am now, because they really gave me what I needed in order to be successful. Wow,
that is awesome to hear. So as far as the homeschooling goes, you said all your brothers and sisters were homeschooled as well. Now, were there other kids coming into the house? Were your parents teaching other kids, or was it just straight to the family? No, it was
just a family. My mom was a teacher after she got married. My mom was a teacher for several years before she started having kids. Okay. And she was very, very good at it. And she wanted the opportunity to be at home and control what we were taught as kids. So I grew up in a very Christian oriented home. We were religious. We did Bible studies every morning, and she put so much effort into the school day for us. And it was very structured. I think people have sort of a very different viewpoint for homeschooling, but for us, it was extremely structured. It gave us the opportunity to do a lot of things that we wouldn't be able to do if we were in school every day. And it's definitely not for everybody, but it really worked out for us. And my dad was the main breadwinner. He worked, and that allowed my mom to stay at home with us. So a lot of time, a lot of effort, but it was just us that were there. We were part of a homeschool group. So there was a lot of families that came in, and we were part of this big group that went and did things like sports together or other events, other, things that they would put on. But it was just us day to day. So nobody else would come into the house. Okay.
Yeah, that's really interesting for me. There wasn't, if any, homeschooling going on when I was growing up. It wasn't a lot. I didn't hear about it too much. So very, very interesting. I know, more so today, people are leaning forward with the homeschooling, and
I think it's getting really popular.
Yeah, the way you just described it, I can understand why.
Yeah, I don't know if that would be something that I do myself, but I think it's becoming more and more popular. And it's not to say that there aren't good schools out there. I went to a really good school, when I stopped homeschooling, and my high school years were great. But I think that more people are turning towards that because they can see that control, I think, and that influence that you have as parents with your children at such a young age is crucial. I mean, absolutely. I don't have kids, so I can't really, I'm not speaking from experience, but I did get both worlds, so I understand that time is crucial to upbringing. It's crucial to how they're going to, turn out per se. And so, I had a really good experience, and it worked out really well for us. And again, the time and the effort that it takes can be really, I think, really tough on parents, but it was really worth it for us.
Yeah, I can see that. So needless to say, your parents stayed together as through your childhood.
I have really great examples of parents. I really couldn't have asked for better. And I'm very fortunate to, I know that's not the case for everybody, but my parents stayed together. I'm sure it was tough at times, having 6 kids, but yeah, they've been together for a long time, and they poured a lot of love and a lot of effort into their kids. And I'm definitely, some of us like myself needed more love and effort, but yeah, I have amazing parents.
So how were you as a kid? Were you tomboyish?
Oh, yeah. I definitely was a tomboy. I loved doing things with my dad. And on the flip side, too, I was a girly girl as well. I had a box of dress-up clothes, and I would dress up every day. And because we homeschooled, I had the opportunity. I could change 5 to 7 times a day, and I'd come out in different outfits. And my mom would just let me because, it's just being creative. But I would wear a tutu or a ballet outfit because I loved ballet, and I'd go fix fences with my dad or something. Again, very fortunate growing up. My dad's side of the family had family land that was out in a small town called Sturgis. It's about 15 miles from Starkville. And we call it the family farm. It's not a farm. It's not a livelihood. It's just family land. Okay. My grandmother lived down there. I had some other family members live down there, but we would go hunting, we would go fishing. So we grew up in the outdoors as well. And so anything that my dad did outside, I loved to be there with him doing it. We had cows. We would go feed the cows. We'd fix fences. We had horses for a little while. I swear my favorite thing growing up was using post hole diggers to dig the post hole. It was crazy. But yeah, I would say that, I was very creative, very tomboyish, but I also loved all of my dress up clothes. But yeah, I really tried to do it all. Definitely was a rambunctious kid, probably.
Okay, that sounds like an amazing way to grow up, kind of that farm life.
It was, and again, I say we're really fortunate. And I know that's not the case for everybody, but we had so much at our disposal really to help aid creativity. And I have so many great childhood memories of being outside, like I said, hunting, fishing. You name it, we were out there. My brother and I would go and build forts in the woods or ride the 4-wheeler around. That stuff. Yeah, it was great. And
minus the 4-wheeler, right? And the whole thing is, right, this is all about what did you do with what you had, right? Growing up, how did you take advantage of what you had, right?
Yeah.
So, being out there on the farm and being with Dad, that's huge.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And he loved, to show us, because he grew up doing that same thing. He grew up on that land. And so us getting to do these activities with him, and I swear there's so many lessons learned in these years and these memories and in these events that we did. And my favorite thing in the world every year in the summer was to bale hay, because we had fields, large pastures, and we would do like 2 or 3 cuttings every summer, and we would bale square bales and we would sell them. And so that was my summer job as a kid. And we started young too. And it's not like my dad used this as like child labor, it was good lessons and a great way to work out. But every year we would bale hay, and it was my favorite thing to do in the world. And I loved it. And I still love it. We haven't baled hay down there in a long time, but I still think about those memories and those lessons that I learned. And I swear that's the only reason I get through land nav is I think, oh my gosh, I've been outside my whole life.
Right.
And, everything that I've learned and done, it just makes this easier, But yeah, baling hay was the highlight of my summer.
I was going to ask you at what age you started working working regularly, where you were getting paid a wage, and whether it was for the family or.
Well, outside of like allowance as a kid, I had my first real job at 15. I started lifeguarding at a country club. Okay. But prior to that, my dad would pay us, like I said, our little summer job basically was to help him around the farm doing things or baling hay. Because, whoever bought the hay, we would go deliver it. And of course the kids would get a cut of what the price was. But my first job was a lifeguard for Starkville Country Club. And I did that for a couple years when I was in high school in the summertime. Okay.
Were you a big swimmer growing up, or just?
We learned how to swim. Like my parents put us in swim lessons, and so we had a good basis, but it wasn't something that I did a lot. It was just kind of the job that allowed me, an opportunity to work, but also, be a kid. I saved a lot of my money at the time when I was going to Starkville Academy, when I was in high school there. I pretty much used all of my income to pay for like my basketball shoes, basketball wardrobes for when we would, have games and stuff. So, but yeah, I did that for pretty much my whole high school career. I think I was lifeguarding every summer.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I was going to ask, when you did start going to the academy, how was that transition coming from homeschool? Were you ahead? Were you behind academically? Was it a rough transition?
It really wasn't. It was different, but it really wasn't too hard of a transition or rough. I think I wasn't behind. It was just a little bit different. I think I was more ahead than behind. And socially, I think a lot of people have questions about homeschooling, the social aspect of it. Like, how do you socialize your kids? Well, I had friends at church. I had friends that went to this particular school that I had grown up with. We had no issues being socialized. So going into an environment where you're just around kids, it really wasn't that hard for me, but it was different seeing the structure that a school system has, first period, second period, the different subjects. And there were some subjects that I had already learned or was a little bit more advanced in, and then I had to go into that particular grade, and I already knew a few things or was, a little bit more ahead of everybody else. But the transition really wasn't that bad. And again, I kind of credit my parents for that, because while we did school at home, we did plenty of activities outside of the home. So we didn't like grow up living under a rock,
right.
All of us were involved in sports. I played softball my entire life. Softball, baseball, tournaments, we would go, and we had so many friends. And so I really wasn't too worried about that transition. So for me, it was pretty smooth. A little bit of an adjustment just with the daily schedule, right. And then playing like sports. I learned how to play basketball there. I had a phenomenal basketball coach, Glenn Schmidt. She was amazing. And so that was a great outlet for me. But the transition wasn't too bad. I think overall it wasn't something that I can look back on and think that was really tough. That was hard, you know?
So when you slid into the school, would you say a lot of people already knew you just from?
I knew a fair amount of people.
Okay.
There was always there was a point where, you have to make friends.
Yeah.
And I will say that I did make friends. I played on softball team, basketball team. I didn't keep a whole lot of friends though.
Yeah.
And I think that it was just a little bit different. There were some maturity levels that, I felt that I was above. And so a lot of the activity that normal high schoolers, get involved in or do, I didn't really do. It was something that I didn't feel like I was above, but it wasn't something I was really interested in.
Okay. And so when you were moving into your senior year, just college was the only thing on your mind?
Yes, absolutely. I was very ready to go to college, and I knew I'd go to Mississippi State. That was always, I would say, a dream. My mom went to Mississippi State. My dad went to Mississippi State. It was just I knew that was coming. I was really looking forward to college. I had a great 4 years in high school, but my main focus was playing basketball, being done with having a great senior year, and then moving on with my life.
Gotcha. So talk to me about college.
College was great. I say great. College was busy. I spent the first year at home because we lived so close. I only lived like 3 miles from college. But I did want to move out eventually. And I think every college kid, wants to move out, live on their own and all that, get out from under the parents and
get that college experience.
Yeah, exactly. So I was really fortunate to spend that first year at home. That was fine. I saved a lot of money. But for the second year, I moved out. I moved into an apartment with my older sister, who was also finishing up her college. And I worked so much during college. I had 3 to 4 jobs plus a class load. So I look back on it now, and I wouldn't change anything, but it probably wasn't so necessary for me to work so much, because I would pack my schedule with 10 minutes in between job switches or classes. So I tried to burn candles at both ends, just to make sure that I could pay my rent, pay for classes. And it was a tough schedule, a really tough schedule. There were nights where I would only sleep for maybe 2 hours, and then I'd get up and go and do it again.
Yeah, that is rough.
Yeah, it was, but again, it was really great life lessons, and I wasn't looking for trouble, and I wasn't looking to be, a partier in college, and I wasn't, but it definitely kept me away from that crowd, because I'd have class at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd go till 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then I'd immediately go to work at one of the jobs that I did. I worked in really, random jobs. And then I would bartend. I bartended at night. The bar would close around 1 or 2 a.m. I'd go for a run. I'd go work out. I'd do homework, and I'd sleep for like 2 hours.
Wow.
Get up and do it again.
Yeah, that's brutal.
It was tough. It was a tough schedule, but I definitely did it to myself.
How long did you do that? Was that all 4 years?
Oh man, I did that I'd say it's probably like 3 years, 2.5 to 3 years. I did that, and it just became just a way that I lived, It was
just your life, huh?
It was. It really was. And again, I wouldn't change anything, but it was tough. It was really tough. I had a difficult time. There were times where I was like, I'm doing too much.
What were you studying?
I started in kinesiology. So I spent a year in that program, and then I went to clinical psychology, which is what my bachelor's is in.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So when you were studying, what was the end state besides just getting your degree? Where were you going beyond that, when, at least in your head?
Yeah. I wasn't sure. There was a point where I really liked school. I really liked my classes. I loved going and learning. And I thought for a long time that like being a personal trainer was what I wanted to do. I was really big into fitness, and I have always been. And I wanted that to translate to my job or my career. But the more I thought about it, and then the more I kind of was in the kinesiology program, really your choices were physical therapy or occupational therapy. And that was it. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. Yeah. So when I had a college professor, and she was my general psychology class, which was just part of a prereq. It was just a general psych class that you had to take, like
your Psych 101.
Yeah, just a general class. And she was amazing. And she got me so interested in psychology. And I loved studying the mind and how it worked. And so I really felt led to change. So that's when I started thinking, okay, maybe I'm going to change and do psychology. And I loved it. But even then, there was a point in my later junior and senior years where I thought to myself, like, I'm not exactly sure what my purpose with this is. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I love this subject. I love the mind and how it works in human behavior. I just don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know what my purpose is. And I prayed a lot about that too, because I love a purpose. Yeah. I need it. I really need it. Yeah.
Yeah, we all do.
And so with that, I just kept going to class and working and doing my thing. And I was like, someday, at some point, like, I'm going to have it or I'm going to find it. I'm not doing all this hard work for nothing.
Right on. So as you graduate, what are you thinking? Were you already considering the military as you were graduating, or
so the way the military came up was very interesting. And like I had said before, I knew something was going to come to me. Yeah. I just wasn't sure when or where it was going to be. So how this happened is very interesting. But one of my jobs was a trainer. I did personal training for one of the local gyms. Okay. And I got hired by this gentleman, and he was an older Green Beret, and he still did some work with the National Guard. And he was preparing to go and do something with the National Guard. And he came into the gym and he wanted to hire a personal trainer to kind of help him get back into shape. Okay. And so I was there that day. And so I told him, I was like, I have room. I really didn't have room. I was really busy, but I was like, yeah, I have room for, another client. So let me know what you want to do. And I worked out very, very hard myself. And so I would do the same with my clients at the time. I really did some different workouts. We'd go outside, we'd flip tires, and we'd do all this. And, it was a different style of workout. And I explained that, and he was like, that's perfect. So we worked out, and I took him on as a client, and I started programming for him for it was probably about 3 or 4 weeks into the workouts. He told me one day about the 18 X-ray program for SFAS. And I had no idea what that meant, no idea what it was. And he was telling me a little bit about it, and he's like, I think you'd be perfect for this, just based off of the work ethic that, we brought to workouts. Right. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I went home that day, and I kind of looked it up a little bit and read a little bit about it. And I was like, I can do this. I think I'm going to do this. And it was very out of left field. I just out of the blue, never heard about it before, never once thought about joining the Army in any way at all. Not any branch of the military.
No history of the military.
So I had grandfathers that were in the Navy, that were in the military. But my dad wasn't, and I had never once thought about it at all. It was never an option for me.
No friends went to the military?
No, not at all. I had a boyfriend at one time who was in the Guard, but that was it. Okay. No military whatsoever. Just never thought about it until that day.
Until this random Green Beret.
Until that day, he was explaining it to me, and it really felt like my style, because I thought, here's something this is a good purpose. I think this is something I feel very capable of doing. I'm in good physical shape. I have no worries about those qualifications for this.
So for the audience that hasn't read what you read, what are you reading, and what is it? What picture is being painted in your mind of what this is?
So I started with just the kind of the history of the Green Berets, and I didn't delve into it too much the very first time. I just kind of skimmed through what Special Forces is. I didn't get into the weeds of there's the Echoes, the Bravos, the MOSs and the details of this. I didn't really get into the first time. All I really did was kind of look at what was going to be required of me if I chose to do this. And I did not know at the time that there were no females that had done this. But that didn't enter into my head at all. I just thought, I'm capable. I can do it.
What year is this?
This is 2017, I think, at the time. I had not read, in my research, I didn't read anything about any females doing it, but that's not what I researched first off.
So you didn't know that you were going to be one of the first females?
No,
you just this gentleman told you about a program that existed, and you figured this has been going on forever,
Sure.
and there's probably several females all over. Okay.
Yeah, it didn't occur to me one time to think about I'm a female. It was just more of I definitely could do that.
Those are the standards.
Yeah, and I kept that too, that mentality. Like, it never occurred to me until much later on and I'll get into this, when I was trying to go through that, it kind of came up and I was like, oh, I've never once thought about that at all. So in my research, I didn't look for that. I didn't look for, is there a female in, special forces who, is out there, being successful at doing special forces things. I just didn't think about that at all. I thought, here's a task and here's a purpose. I can do all of that, no matter, it doesn't matter what I am,
That's perfect.
And I thought that was, how it was. But so I did my research, and I, continued to train with him, and he continued to talk to me about it. And I decided that was something I was gonna pursue. So I started to kind of look around, and there is a small camp that's in Mississippi called Camp McCain.
Okay.
And so I drove down to Camp McCain. Again, I didn't go to recruiter. I was kind of terrified of recruiters because I had heard a few stories about how recruiters would try to push you into an MOS or a job that you didn't want to do.
Sure.
So I was very untrusting of recruiters, and I wanted to do all my own research first and then bring that to a recruiter and do my homework so I wouldn't get pushed into something that I didn't want to do.
Okay, good idea.
Yeah, and so I went to Camp McCain. I knocked on a door. It was just the first door that I parked in front of. I knew that there were some, I believe it was 20th Special Forces Group. There were a few guys that were down there in that area. And I am doing some research, but I definitely don't know everything I'm just looking for people to give me some answers. So I knocked on the first door, and this guy opened the door, and I told him there's this random girl standing there and who wanted to join. And he was like, yeah, I'm a Green Beret. We can talk to you about it. So I talked with them about it, and they were very supportive about it. And of course, it was just like my idea, and I was just asking some questions about, what the SFAS looked like and what I needed to do. And I also wanted to do the National Guard. That was the big thing. I wanted to join the National Guard. So that would require me to go through the SFRE that they put on. It was just like a mini selection process, sort of, just to kind of see what kind of shape you're in and if you would make it.
Just kind of a PT
yeah,
test,
exactly.
Road march.
Yeah,
okay.
exactly. Now, a couple of weeks later, I went back and I did a PT test. It was just a standard PT test that they do at SFAS, which I passed. It was fine. I do remember vividly, though, that run was terrible because there was a hurricane coming in and it was super windy and rainy. But I did that, and I felt very confident. I felt very good about my abilities and my efforts. And so now that I had, some background and some information in my folder, very organized, I had a folder, I took it to a recruiter who was on campus at Mississippi State. And I took it to him, and I sat down at his desk, and he was like, yeah, sure. What do you want to do? Kind of, because I was, in college and I was going to earn my bachelor's degree, they were pushing me towards the officer side.
Sure.
It was maybe, like, thinking back, I thought maybe I should have done that, but
I was going to ask you why you didn't.
Well, so because I had a great idea of what I wanted to do, the more we looked into it, the more I thought I didn't really want to be held to an officer's timeline. I felt like there was much more flexibility for me as enlisted to go and do the things that I wanted to do. So I chose to be enlisted. And of course, I knew officer would be an option later if I wanted to do that. That was going to be open for me. But for me, enlisted was the route to take, just because it offered me, I thought it offered me a way better chance of doing what I wanted to do. So I went to the recruiter and I told him about it. His name was David Moore. He was so helpful. But he looked at me like I had two heads, because it was such a different thing. And I was like, I want to do the 18 X-ray program, and I want to do the National Guard. Here's my brochures and all my my research. Please don't ask me to do anything else. How do I get here? And he was so helpful. He did a lot of legwork for me because it took a lot, because there was no route to take to get there. The state of Mississippi, if I remember right, the state of Mississippi didn't have any females that were going to join the infantry, which is how I was going to do this.
So you had to start it infantry first.
Yes.
Okay.
So long story short, I would say the National Guard didn't work out. So I spent like 2 months in the National Guard, but they didn't have, there was like a rule where you had to have either like a female officer or a female enlisted in order to enlist another female, and there were none.
Oh.
So National Guard all of a sudden was not an option for me at all. So that threw a bit of a wrench in the plans, because I was not going to go active duty. That was not the plan. It was to do National Guard. But when we realized that option wasn't going to be open for me, I was like, well, I still want to do this. So the only option I have is to go active duty. So a bit of a change there. And of course, like David, he was so helpful with everything. He took me to MEPS like 7 times and did all this paperwork for me and helped me, because it was no easy task to join, really.
What were the challenges that you were running into? I have to assume David probably had not put too many people in under the 18X coming out of college. That probably wasn't a norm. I
think so. There was that. There was MEPS, which, I mean, I had heard nightmare stories about MEPS. I got kicked back for stupid stuff. I think I was in the gym one day and I dropped a dumbbell on my thumb, and there was like a blood blister under my thumb. And I went to MEPS and they kicked me back for that. They told me it was an open wound.
Oh my goodness. Well, I know there are some rules that you cannot come in or exit the military with any kind of, injuries. So
yeah, it stuff like that too. And then I had to be discharged from the Guard, which takes a while. Of course, paperwork takes time. And I think they tried to give me an other than honorable discharge. And so I had to fight that, because, I mean, I didn't even do anything. Right. It was just we accept you, but we don't have an avenue for you to accomplish this. And because there was none, like I said, I'm not going to do something I don't want to do. Right. So I wasn't going to risk that. So I said, okay, well then just cut me loose and I'm going to go active. And that took time too. So there was a lot of time involved in the joining of it, to the point where I was like, wow, this is a lot of work. But we finally got a contract signed. And so what we did was I signed an 11 X-ray contract. And so that meant that I was going in as infantry. We knew that I could volunteer for 18 X-ray in basic. And so if SFAS did not work out the first time, then I would not go to needs of the Army. I would revert back to being an 11 Bravo. And then they would probably send me to the 82nd. The 82nd was integrated at the time. Very, very little, but still, that was one of the units that was integrated. They had females in the infantry, and they were accepting them. Yeah,
this is circa 2017.
This is 2017 to early 2018.
So you
late
got
17,
about
early
3
18.
years of females going through infantry basic training, and now being plugged into. You said the 82nd. Where else were the females going for the most part?
I can't remember. I think they were going to
101st and
101st. I think it was those two. But we knew that, and then the 82nd is right next to SWIC.
Yep.
So I thought, well, if it doesn't work out for me, I'll go be an 11 Bravo, which is fine. I'll go to the 82nd. That keeps me in proximity to SWIC, and I'll just go back. Perfect. Yeah. I was like, perfect. This is perfect plan. And it turns out that's exactly what happened. But so I assigned 11 X-ray. I had option 4, which is airborne. So that meant that I was going to go straight to airborne school right out of basic. And I did an early ship for basic, which was in June. It was summer, mid to late summer of 2018
You said you did an early ship?
Mm-hmm. Yep. That was at the time was early. So when the contract, finally, we got everything fixed, because I had to send it back, because, you got to read your contracts. You got to read them. You got to read them. There were a couple of things in there that I didn't like, and so I sent it back like twice, and they fixed it. And then finally I signed it and then did the early ship. But I did the early ship one class away from graduating and getting my bachelor's, which at the time felt like a good idea because I knew that class I could take online.
Okay.
It was psychological statistics, which is like the very last class for that program. And it's a higher tier college class and it was going to be tough. But I was so excited about starting this new journey that I wanted to go. I was like, let me just get this started. And then I know I can come back and I can finish that. So I kind of wish I had it, but it worked out. It worked out. But that's how I got into the Army.
Okay. Yeah. So first, Sand Hill, I guess, is your first stop, right?
Yeah.
So 11 X-ray. How many females did you have in your basic training?
I want to say we had maybe 20. I think there were 20. I'll be honest with you. Basic was extremely eye-opening for me. I was 20. I turned 24 in basic. So I was already older than a lot of the kids. I'm going to say kids because it makes me feel old, but I was already older than a lot of the kids who were there. I had life experience. I had, again, a very solid foundational upbringing, and I was very sure of myself. Yeah. I had the goals. I had the motivation. I didn't need to get my ass in gear in basic. I was already in gear. And I was in shape. I got a little faster in basic because we ran a lot, but it was very eye-opening for me to be in that environment. I didn't particularly like it, but of course you have to go through it. That's just the first step,
right. Yeah.
So I made a few friends, but not many, just because, I needed the birds of a feather flock together, and not everybody was as motivated or, as, I guess you could say goal oriented as I was. And I just didn't need that. So I didn't really bother building a lot of really close relationships, I guess you could say.
Well, that makes sense. And, you mentioned the birds of a feather. I have to assume that a lot of the females there, they had similar goals and aspirations. They were probably a lot of them were going to be Green Berets. And
oh, no.
No?
Nope.
You were the only one?
Just me.
Anybody looking to go, everyone was trying to go to 82nd or? Yeah.
And so there was a group of 8 X-rays that I made friends with, definitely mostly guys. And that was great. Yeah, that was my little group. Once I was able to volunteer for it, I had a good little group there because we all went to brag together. There were no other females that were doing that. So that's where a little bit of a difference. And I didn't feel special. I was just taking a different path,
different path.
Yeah, we were all 11 Bravos. But I found that generally it was kind of the mindset of I'm joining the infantry to be a badass. I just want to be a badass. If that's your reasoning and that's what's getting you through basic, good for you. But I didn't look at it that way. I kind of looked at it as, well, I'm not joining to be a female in the infantry. I'm joining to be an infantryman just because this is the route that I'm taking to do this other thing. Right. And that wasn't quite as relatable, I think. And also I will say there were the age difference too, and the life experience difference. It was very evident. So I didn't really bother to develop a lot of those relationships. And which turned out fine. I think that most of the girls that I, did become friends with have gone and done their time in the Army, and they're either out or have families or, are doing their thing. And then that's great. It was just very different for me.
No, that makes perfect sense. So when considering you were on this different path, were you treated any different in basic?
No.
So you didn't get any extra PT or anything out of it? No.
Well, I did, again, I was capable, was responsible. So I did get some extra duties. Like I was trusted with responsibility quite a bit. And then I think later on towards like the end of your basic, once you get into, I think it's red phase is the last phase. I can't remember if it's red or blue, but you get into your last phases. If I asked to do like some extra PT, if there was some time in the afternoon, they would let me go down. There was a track that was next to our building.
Yeah.
So they would let me go do track workouts and like take some dumbbells from the Bay Area down there just to do some extra work. And I think, and it, of course, I felt like I was a responsible and mature person already, because again, that age and that life experience and that upbringing really, really came into play for me. And that definitely helped in that trusting from the drill sergeants at that time.
Right.
So that was about the only thing, though. I wouldn't say any different treatment outside of that. You know, you go to basic. We were the last 14-week cycle. I think now it's 22 weeks. But we were the last 14-week cycle to be there. And it was, you know, again, an experience, but nothing different. I would say it wasn't I definitely was looked at a little bit, maybe looked at a little bit differently, but just more so of like, oh, she's doing a different route.
Did you get any encouragement there?
I didn't get any discouragement. You know, I didn't have anybody tell me, you know, no, or that you couldn't do stuff. It was just kind of, it was pretty, I would say it was encouraging. Nobody, you know, straight up was like, you can't do that, or it'll never happen, or it'll never work. You know, I didn't have any of that. It was, I would say it was pretty accepting of it for the most part.
That's great. So finishing basic training, you were a leader already, natural leader, being a little bit older. So squad leader, any of those positions?
Like within the platoon.
Yeah.
They would do, I want to say it was like platoon sergeant of the platoon. And I was that class leader type of thing. I've been class leader in everything.
I would think so.
It's awful.
Yeah.
but yeah, I did have, I mean, we rotated, you know, those positions, but I did have those a couple of times.
Good.
I'll be honest with you. I did win an award in basic, and I can't remember what it was. It was something.
Leadership award?
Something
maybe?
like that, yeah.
Good.
I can't remember what it was, though, now.
Yeah,
I feel like that's a long
not
time
everybody
ago.
got a chance to rotate through those just because, you know, you're only allotted so much time, but good deal. So moving to right from there to airborne school?
Yep, went straight into airborne school, which I was terrified because I don't like heights, and I was terrified, absolutely terrified of it. But it was a really good experience. Again, it was, you know, it's your first taste of freedom outside of basic, being there for a couple of months.
I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
It was. And that felt really good. And of course, I'm not going to, you know, I felt very, very focused on my goals. And so I never was tempted to go and do anything that would
jeopardize.
You know, exactly. Yeah. And I did see a little bit of that, which, I mean, people are going to do things, but you know, it was really nice to be out. I will say it was not super fun to sit in a chute in the pack shed for hours, and that was new. The airborne timeline, or the introduction of the airborne timeline, was a big eye-opening thing for me, because I thought, wow, this is amazing, and I love this. But this is crazy.
Right. We're going to do initial manifest at 0630 to jump at 2200.
Yeah, and it just blew my mind. It really did. But I was so happy to be there, because I thought, okay, this is the next step. I have to do this in order to go and do the next thing. And I was so excited because when we did our 5 jumps, I had no issues. I came out unscathed, no broken bones, no nothing. So very fortunate. But my dad came to see me, and he was able to see my last jump, my 5th jump. And I knew that I was going to be the first jumper. I love being the first jumper. It's the best. And
you're terrified to jump, but you want to be the first one to get out.
So exactly. But see, let me tell you, like, it's so much better to stand there in the door and look out. And it just kind of gives my mind some peace about the fact that I'm about to throw my body out of a plane. It just gives me a lot of just like calmness. I don't know. Just looking out the door. Of course I'm nervous, but I feel much more at peace looking out at where I'm about to jump out of,
as
instead
opposed
of just
to staring at the person right in front of you. You're
staring at the person in front of you, and then all of a sudden you just leap out of a door. And you know, but to me, that's the place to be, is the first jumper. And I knew I was going to be the first jumper. So when he was watching from Fryer Drop Zone, he knew that the first person out was going to be me. And that was very special, to have my dad out there. And because that's something nobody else had done in the family. And he's always been so supportive and so proud of me, and that I just felt so happy to have him there. And it was such a new thing for my family, because I'll be honest, I didn't tell my parents I was joining until well into the process.
Oh.
Not because I was trying. Well, I wasn't trying to hide anything from them, but I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to go. But I was a planner, so I mapped out the SFAS timeline to the best of my abilities. I'm going to go basic, I'm going to go to airborne, I'm going to go to SFAS, or I'm going to go to their prep course first, and then I'm going to go SFAS. And if it works out, this is what I want to do, and this is what that looks like. If it doesn't, this is what that looks like. So I had a whiteboard. Yeah. And like one afternoon or like one night, I was like, I need to talk to y'all, and I had my whiteboard out, and I was trying to explain it, and they just looked at me, and my dad's like, okay. And my mom's just, where's this coming from? And I'm, again, a very creative kid. I wanted to do a lot of things growing up. I think at one point I wanted to be a ballerina in the circus, be like an acrobat or something.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Well, I came up with a lot of them. I really did. And I think politics came into one time. I was like, I want to be a politician, or I want to work in politics. I had all kinds of plans, And then my mom was like, well, you've always kind of come out of left field with everything. So you know what? We're here to support you, and they've been like, a rock for me ever since with everything.
Were they able to grasp the infantry stuff and what you were really signing up to do?
Originally, probably not. And even I wasn't exactly sure, but they did so well at accepting that this is what I was putting my time and effort and energy into. And again, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, like I would not be here or successful or as grounded.
They sound amazing.
If I didn't have Tom and Carrie Jackson, I really, really wouldn't. And I am blessed with that. I'm blessed with the Jackson name. Like my dad has worked hard his whole life. He gave me a reputation from the get-go, a good name. And the fact that, he has worked for that has really, and my mom too as well, like my mom has put the effort into us. It is so important. And I hope that one day, like I get the opportunity to do the same thing for my kids. It has never failed me, ever. My parents have never failed me. And they probably have thought, along the way, why did our daughter join the infantry? Why did she do this? But what they gave me. And I told them, I had to sit down, talk with them after I graduated basic. I'm getting a little off track here, but when I graduated basic, you get to see your family. Yeah. And we had a hotel, I think, for that night. And before they left, I had a sit down conversation with them. I was like, thank you, like for doing this for me. 'Cause if you hadn't, there's no way I would be as okay with this. And, as I would never have made it through if I had not had that grounding, if I had not had that upbringing, and just, I know it wasn't easy, but it really stuck out to me. And I really thought about it when I was there, because I was doing fine. I was a pretty good kid. I didn't have any, didn't really do anything bad, growing up. I was so busy in college working, I didn't have time to do that. But it just being in the environment in basic, it really, really hit home for me, like how fortunate I was. Yeah. And I just needed them to know that, How'd they accept it? I think my mom cried a little bit, and I probably cried too, but I think it was really nice to hear, as parents, that your kids in their mid-20s who are going and doing new things like the Army. I'm sure it's nice to hear that. You may not believe it, because I think there's always parts where you're like, oh, am I a good parent? Am I doing the right thing? Of course. And again, I'm not one, but man, I know what one looks like. We learn as we go, a lot of us, Yeah, and they knocked it out of the park. They really did. And they may not think that, but all my siblings, like we're doing good. We're doing good. And I know that that's important. And I just felt so much of that gratefulness for that. during this time. And I do years now. And I'm 32 and I still feel like I owe everything, to them. But it was really, it was definitely, I think, difficult for them to hear that I was taking this journey. And every time I have said, all right, I'm going to SFAS. This is what that looks like. This is what I'm going to be doing. They've been like, oh my gosh, like that's tough, but you can do it.
You can do it.
Yeah. If anybody can do it, like you can do it. And really and truly, like never needed anything more than that, because who cares what other people think you can, it doesn't matter. But having him there for my last jump was amazing. And I felt it was great. There's a picture of me and I have like the stupid airborne sticker of my roster number on the front of my helmet,
Yeah.
And I've got my parachute on my back and I'm trying to run off the drop zone. But then there's another picture of my dad right there. And it's like the moment that I get to see him. And I was like, I'm a grown woman and I am so happy that like my dad is here to see this, because I don't like jumping. I didn't like jumping. I was scared. But yeah, so airborne was next. I did that October of 2018, November, I think 2018, I completed airborne and then took the bus to Bragg.
So the bus ride to Fort Bragg, are you with a bunch of the bros that you'd linked up with in basic and been training up with?
Yeah, I was. We were all going to the same place. So, I mean, we all, all rode the same bus. But yeah, I was just really happy to be out of bedding at the time, I was kind of tired of it, ready to go and move on. But yeah, I was with a group of guys that I had linked up with there. We were all 18 X-rays then. And so we were all going to the same place. We were really excited. Like the vibes on the bus were high. Were really high.
How big was the group going through that? Do you remember?
I don't remember exactly, but I think there were like 6 or 7 of us at the time. Yeah, I don't remember exactly how many. It wasn't a large group, but I mean, of course, there are other kids who are going. They're going to the 82nd.
Right.
We just got dropped off first, as they were going down Ardennes. But yeah, it wasn't a large group, but I was really excited to have some people who were doing the same thing,
right?
Because there definitely weren't any females that were doing it. So, and that's when I realized, in I think in basic, it's kind of when I started to put together. This is not something that is common, I think, for like females, or I wasn't sure if there had been one yet, or there had been ones that had tried. Because again, when I joined and thought about all this. Didn't even look that up. Had no idea. So I came into Bragg not knowing anything about just if females were doing well in the infantry. Had no clue, But it never entered into my head that it would ever be either an issue or something that was looked at differently. Because why?
Right.
Yeah. I was a bit naive in that, I think. But it's just because I was still new in the Army and didn't know.
Yeah. Okay, so how were you received when you got to Bragg? How was that?
Well, I remember getting dropped off. We were dropped off at a basketball court, and it was nighttime, and it was empty, and all I had were 2 duffel bags and no idea where to go. But it was my reception at SWIC was actually really good, very smooth. Now, of course, with all of their students, and I think people who are, guys who have gone through SFAS everybody can say, like, the cadre are definitely gonna kind of be menacing and everybody's there for the same reason. You're going to get smoked or hazed or whatever people call it. But I really didn't have any issues whatsoever. My in processing was fine. I stayed in the barracks there, very close to battalion. And of course, I wasn't looking for different treatment. So honestly, if there was anything that was like a minuscule type of different treatment, I definitely wouldn't have noticed really, because I was just A, happy to be there, B, ready to do whatever. To me, it was like, whatever we're doing, I can do it. It's just part of the process. This is part of it. This is what we do.
Yeah, you're still in the pipeline.
Yeah, exactly. So I really didn't feel different whatsoever. There was another girl who was there, and we were roommates for a while. I cannot remember exactly why she didn't make it. She had already been, but she didn't make it very far. And I can't remember. I think she was not planning on going back, but she was in the process of going to the 82nd or leaving and processing out.
Sure.
But I really didn't ask much about her experience, to be honest with you, because I kind of looked at it as that won't be my experience, because everybody's experience is different. So, I didn't really think we were friends, but I didn't really think about asking her too much about it, But I do remember there were so many of us, so many students there, and we'd have formation every day while we're waiting to go to the what was it called?
SFAS? Or I'm sorry,
it's called
SOPC.
SOPC, that's it.
SOPC 1.
Special Operations Prep Course, SOPC. Yes, that. We were all waiting to go to that. And there were a lot of us. I mean, when we had I think it was the med platoon and then all the students waiting to go and the ones that were going back to SFAS all together, we'd have formations every morning. Okay. There was 300 something of us. It was a lot. Yeah. And I really thought, oh, I'm going to blend in. No problem. Nobody's going to notice that I am here. Right. This is great. I didn't blend in very well, but I tried. And, I think there's always the looks or the talks oh, there's a female here, there's a girl here. And there's definitely a lot of that. But it was very important to me to not give anybody any reason to talk about me for anything else other than I am here to do this, right. So I kept to myself. I was not one to go out into Fayetteville, go party, go, visit all these hot spots. It just kind of wasn't in my nature, Yeah. And I thought, well, it's better for me to kind of protect myself because I'm already in a space where I am very much the only one or one of two, maybe, or three, if that's the case, There's no need for me to bring any attention to myself for any other reason. So I kept to myself and showed up for formation. I loved going across the street, which was on certain days, they would take us, all of us, across the street into the wood line. And back in this wood line, there was this open area. And that's where we would do all of our PT. Yeah. / hazing, I guess, if you want to call it that. I loved it because to me, it was just an opportunity to work out. And some of these things that they had us doing sucked and were terrible and all that. But I thought it was great. And it would last for hours. And I mean hours. And there was a sign that was high on a tree that kind of overlooked where we would all do these push-ups or the Y squat, whatever we were doing. Yeah. And it was a sign and it said, "This is our happy place." And underneath that, they would put a clipboard with voluntary withdrawal paperwork. Yeah. So if you wanted to quit, you could go up there to the cadre and you could, sign that form and leave. Right. And I just remembered seeing that sign and I thought, I actually do really like this. This is, if you kind of look at it as a workout, because I loved fitness, loved it. I spent so much time doing fitness. I love it. It really wasn't that bad. It's just a little bit of pain. It's fine. It's a little time I have every day. I started doing workouts on my own over there because, to me, I thought, well, if I'm working out in the same place where I'm getting smoked, then it's not scary or it's not, it just kind of takes away that scary dynamic, that place. If you
must be that psychology degree you got going.
It really came in. That's my brother. It really came in handy because I did use that quite a bit too, especially when I went to Ranger School. I thought about that. Psychology really comes into that a lot. Yeah. But we'd go there, do our...
It was the Matamile area, right? Is that what they called it?
Yeah, I guess. They probably had, as the years have, students have been there over the years, they probably had different places that they do this.
More than likely.
But I just remember that it was always called going across the street. And we would cross, it would be just like a horde of us at a certain time of day. We would just, with all camelbacks and stuff, we would all cross that main street right there and go into the wood line. And then we'd just disappear for a couple of hours. But there was a time very early in my time there, they told us, the cadre there told us, okay, everybody pair up and do buddy carries. And there was a fence line that had some electrical boxes back there. And then, so there was a fence around it. And so outside of that fence was a track, like a dirt gravel track. Yeah. So we would do buddy carries around that track. Well, everybody pairs up, and then there's just me. Nobody paired up with the girl. Again, very new. I understood, but I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a partner. Like, what do I do? I thought somebody's going to want it to pair up with the girl, because surely I'm lighter, right? I'm not. I was like 175, but I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a partner. Like, what do I do? And one of my cadre, Sergeant West, Billy West, he was a great mentor for me very early in the Army. He was great. And he's like, Jackson, they left you. And I was like, yep, they did. And I'm looking around for a rock or something to carry, like a boulder, anything. And he like scoops me up, puts me on his shoulders, and he's like, we're going to do this then. So he carries me around in the buddy carry, and then we get to the end. We beat everybody. We get to the end, and he's like, all right, are you ready? We got to switch. So I'm freaking out because I'm like, I'm carrying my cadre. I can't mess this up, like I got to, beat everybody. So I put him on my shoulders, and I carried him back around the fence, and we beat everybody else that was making their way back around the fence. And then he's like, don't let people leave you, or you can just leave them. And I was like, that kind of doesn't make sense to me, but I get what you're saying. Like I totally understand like what you're trying to say. And he was like, again, a great mentor for me, made a great impact because again, like in SWIC, I wasn't treated differently. I have really good memories there. And, nobody ever made me feel like I was different or what I was trying to do was impossible, or the fact that I was there, I didn't belong or something. It didn't really matter. I was just looked at as one of the students. Yeah. And it was great. And I loved all the PT we did. We did ruck runs. We went across the street a lot, and I thought it was great. I learned how to do better pull-ups there too, because at the end of every day, I really sucked at pull-ups at the time, and I didn't know I had to do 6 in SFAS. So there were pull-up bars out there behind my little barracks building, and so he would make sure I would do pull-ups after the end of every formation, and it helped me so much. But yeah, that was my time at SWIC. I thought it was great. Yeah.
So how'd that go? So did you end up going to selection?
I did. So I went to SOPC in like January, February of 2019. And when we got back from SOPC, which SOPC was great, we did it out at Camp McCall. I think they now do it on Bragg. I don't think they do it at McCall anymore. I could be wrong, but we did it at McCall. So it was great to be out there doing these things that were similar to what we were going to do in selection, and being with the same group that I was going to go with. Right. I had a great time. When we got back, I got really sick. I got pneumonia in both lungs. And so that took me out for quite a while because I was very, very sick. And so I didn't get to go to selection until June of 2019. And I had a good experience. It was a good showing. I felt like I was physically prepared. I didn't have any issues with the runs, with the rucks, the PT tests, none of that. O course? Yeah, O course, no. Didn't have any issues with that. Man, so the O course, I don't really like O courses that much. To me, they're just not really that fun. It's just something you have to do. And I wasn't like, the only thing I was kind of scared of was, I think it's the Jacob's ladder. Would you have to climb up on the beams? And you climb up to the highest one, you got to flip over and climb back down because the beams get wider as you go further up. Yeah, and I'm kind of tall, but I wasn't that tall. So I was a little worried about that one, but that was it. Once I got up there, it was fine, So, the O course, I thought Nasty Nick was great. I kind of had like some fun, but it wasn't hard,
At least it wasn't cold.
Yeah, it wasn't cold.
Through that, so did you guys do it when you were out there January, February for SOPC?
No, we didn't.
It's a different machine when it's all frozen. But anyway, I
hate the cold. I hate doing stuff in the cold. I went to Ranger School in the cold too, so I'll talk about that. It was bad. It was so bad. But yeah, like the first week, 8 week was fine. I felt very comfortable with my performance and what I was doing.
Again, they're not telling you, but
no, they're not. But you can kind of tell, like where you are, like when people come in from the rucks or the runs, where you're at in your place. And I had a great group of guys who were there. I had so much support for me, which again, I didn't feel like I needed, because of course I felt, very motivated, but it was so nice to have. Nobody was against me.
That's great.
Yeah. And I really was grateful for that, and the treatment was no different. Not one single thing felt like it was different for me at all. And I was looking for that, or not looking for it, but I was looking out for it. Like I wanted to recognize it if it was.
Do you think you were surprising them?
Maybe, I don't consider myself to be any way or shape special or, surprising, but I think that anybody who's, maybe if you are a female or even a male who's going out there and really trying to, give it 110% for everything, I think that, that does stand out. I'm going to stand out anyway.
Yeah.
And that's just part of it. When I said I tried to blend in and SWIC and it couldn't, you can't. It's just, you can't. So I'm going to have eyes on me no matter what, whether they're supportive or they're not. I'm just going to stand out because there's only one of me here, or there's two or three, it's just going to happen.
You have to assume that a lot of the fellas, when they saw, hey, there is a female here, they probably had an idea in their head of what they expected, right? Certain expectations. And I think once you exceed those expectations, it's just like, oh, never mind.
Yeah.
You kind of put that to bed.
And this environment too, we're all very close to each other. So they get an opportunity to get to know me if they want to, they don't have to, but if you want to, and I had several who did. I came out with multiple friends from that first go round at selection. It just takes some open-mindedness and, and having understanding and being aware that like, oh yes, there is a female here, but everything that we're doing here is pretty much gender neutral. Yeah. We're all doing the same thing there. I did the same PT test.
Was there any difference to any of the standards?
Not one bit. Okay. Not one bit. And and again, like these were things that I never looked at ever.
Did you ever watch the movie G.I. Jane?
No, I've never seen it.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting enough.
Yeah.
There was a part in the movie where they were offering like a step, like some assistance for the female. And they even marked it female aid. Right. And it was like, and she was like, what is this? It's like, this is gender norming. Right. And it's like, no, it's that I want to do everything the same way everybody else does. So that's great that they didn't offer any kind of assistance towards that. It's just, hey, here's the standard. You either meet it or you don't. Yeah. And
that is the best thing for me too, because, I think it's a privilege to have a standard. Like if you have a standard to meet, like that's amazing. You can do so much with that, and it gives you so much. I think it gives you power. It gives you discipline, which I had, but then there's a reason for that. And that is, whatever standard is put before me, that's what I must strive for with whatever you're doing, and I can't control the changes that are made to that standard. But if it's something that I'm, that is required of me, whatever it is, you either do it or you don't, and respect goes a long way. Yeah. And so I felt like there was a lot of respect there, myself for my, fellow, I guess you could say teammates, the people that were there with me, and then them for me as well. And I didn't have any issues from cadre at all. So overall, I thought, this is great. This is exactly what I thought it was going to be. Right.
I mean, when you look to your left and right, and the bottom line is, the standard is the same. If this is a struggle for me, but I'm making it, and I look to my right and you're there, you're struggling the same, but you're making it. It's, you can't really do anything with it. You know what I mean? It's like that's it, man. So when you start going through things like that, together, that mutual respect, it's earned so quickly, right? Yeah. Or lost so quickly as well. Right?
Absolutely.
That one time that they say, hey, we're just going to give her a little bit. No, it takes away all that credibility. So I think it's great that they just maintain that one standard across the board.
I also learned too that it was important for me to go into this experience thinking, okay, I'm going to go and do everything to the best of my ability. I know what to expect. Like, I know what's coming up. I know we're going to be doing this, this, and this. I know that I can do it. It's definitely going to hurt. It's going to take effort. That's what I have done to prep for this has been like, that's what I love the most. The fun is in the journey to get there.
Yeah.
And then you go and you do it. And I love trying, doing my best to perform. But the process of getting there is my favorite part. And I know that I put the work into it to do that.
Yeah.
So I had not one time was I like, well, I can't do this. I'm going to do my best. I'm definitely not going to be as fast as some of these guys, for sure. But I'm putting forth my best effort and things that I know that I can do.
Or exceeding the standard.
Exactly. And so it's very important for me to look at this through the lens of, like, I am doing this because I want to, because I can. Not think about, how is my experience as a female doing this?
Right.
Because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It didn't matter whatsoever. And I thought the moment I start doing that and thinking about, putting like female in front of everything, then that's where that victim mentality starts to creep in. And I feel like I don't deny that stuff probably does happen, and there's probably maltreatment places. But I was very fortunate to not see that or have that. And it did wonders, because not only did it give me the opportunity to do what I love and to give my best effort at doing the same thing as everybody else, is that I also got to be next to these other guys doing the same thing, and nobody said anything. You know what I mean? Like, it was just more of like, yeah, you're doing this cool. I'm glad you're here. Or, I think this is awesome that you're doing this. And if somebody didn't like it, they can definitely come talk to me about it. Like, I don't care. I'll talk to you about it.
Let's have a conversation, right? And put something to bed.
Absolutely open to that, because I don't think that it's, for every female. And I'll get into that later too. But yeah.
What would you say? I have to assume, and again, this is me assuming, was there some chivalry going on though, or guys wanting to try to be helpful, or it's like, hey, let me help you carry your ruck, what would you say to those fellas?
I don't think I really kind of gave off the vibe that I was going to let you do it.
Okay.
Okay, let me back up. Chivalry is great. Chivalry is almost dead, and it shouldn't be. Oh. There's definitely something to be said for that. I think that's very, very important. And as a female in the infantry in that space, it's such an odd thing, because you don't want to be too chivalrous, because you don't want to offend the female, or you don't want the female to get offended. Like, I think chivalry is it a great thing? It's amazing. I think that's awesome. And I love that. I think it's important to understand, read the room or understand the surroundings in which you're trying to do that. And nothing was ever really offered, or I don't remember being offered that, but I don't think I really gave anybody a reason or, an opportunity to offer that. Cause I was doing fine, Yeah. And so there was a lot of respect. I felt like I was definitely respected. And if they didn't, then they did a good job of putting on a face. But I think that there was a lot of respect, and that probably was the form of chivalry that was being shown at the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
Yeah, because there is no reason for me to put a male down for being chivalrous, right? There's just a better way to handle that. I think that you should be that way, but understand the environment that you're in, what you're doing, and it may not be required, or it shouldn't. And there's some opportunity, or some times where it does not need to be, required. Right.
Because this is new to us too.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure it out ourselves.
Yeah, I totally understand that.
The more help you can give us without it being too far, you know what I'm saying? So
yeah. And I think that's a good thing. I think that you should be that way, and that you should want to be that way. And being the infantry is weird. It's weird for us sometimes too, just because, you're trying to understand what is this dynamic? How do we act? What can we do? What can we not do? I think, first and foremost, that respect at the basic level is where you grow from. And, but at this time, there was there was none of that. And I didn't really need it, you know. I think I had good relationships with everybody. I think people, everybody knew that I was very fully capable. And if they did offer, then I would just politely say, or, no, I don't need it, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
No reason to be any other way than grateful for that. But, I'm good. But yeah, nobody went out of their way to do that.
Okay. And, I guess the reason I asked is I'm picturing things. You're always doing everything as a team. A lot of times it's, hey, give me 2 or 3 people over here. Were people volunteering for you, giving you time off? It doesn't sound like it. Just sounds like it was just a team room mentality.
Yeah, no.
Give me 2. That means you and one other, if that's what it means. So
whatever was required, like I definitely could do, we all could. Yeah. And that's just what this is an assessment as well. So they're looking to see how well you work together without us trying to take on so much of another one's burden.
Sure.
We're all trying to share and, adjust as best as we can, whether that, whatever part of SFAS that is.
Right.
And, I think that they're looking for that, but there was no extra, time or effort put into what I was carrying or doing,
Okay. So, you said that first week, PT week crushed. You felt like you did really good there. So now you're moving into, I think, kind of your cadre-led land navigation.
Yes. Okay. So here's where I started. This is what happened. This is where I ended. Like my SFAS only went into the second week. So we do the land nav class on the second, in the in-gate week, and then in the second week. This may have changed too since I've been, but they do the land nav class, and then you take the test. Like you do the personality test, you do, I think it's like a basic knowledge test type of thing. The psychological test, a few of you get pulled into that. And so we did a land nav class, and which that was the first like really good land nav class I ever got.
Phenomenal.
Oh, it was phenomenal. I was really confused. Not confused, but just very kind of stressed over land nav when I first went, because my experience land naving was just from basic, which is very different because you're doing it in groups. It's very easy to find the points. The star is a monster, and it is a totally not what I think. You're a brand new, person in the Army, you don't go just directly to the star. I was terrified because I knew those movements were long, and I just did not feel comfortable with my land nav, but I was there for it, And so the class was amazing. Loved it. I took so many notes in this class. I had so many notes. I wrote everything down. And in SFAS, you're allowed to have one notebook. Part of the packing list. It's just like one notebook, which I had. But what I didn't realize was that there was another notebook in my duffel bag. And one day they did, it was after all of these classes that we had done. Yeah. And all these classes, I wrote everything down, and I will write everything down just because that's how I stayed awake, stayed engaged. I love taking notes. I filled up like 3 Write and Rain books in Ranger School. I mean, that's like my thing. Yeah. And so they did like a bag dump one day. We were out of the barracks, and they looked through, and they found my notebook. And at first they thought that it was a log, because you're not supposed to write like your day-to-day activities for SFAS. Okay. But it was just all the notes from all the classes, which I already understood we had permission to do. Yeah. But you couldn't have 2. And apparently there were 2 notebooks in my bag. So there was an extra one in the front. The green duffel bag has the front clear pocket. Yeah. And you can put something back there. Well, there was a book back there, and I must have put it in there at some point and just forgot about it. But they found it, and they said, we have 2 notebooks. And so they dropped me.
Wow. Integrity violation.
All of that. And so I kind of thought it was a bit jarring for me. Yeah. All of that for that one thing, And so I argued it. I did. Like once the ones who were getting dropped go to Tent City. Yeah. And so I was heartbroken heartbroken over it. And I understood it because I understand like rules are rules, but I wanted to fight it, you put a lot of work in, you wanted to fight it. So I went, I did, and they kind of threatened me with NTR if I was going to fight. Cause when I say fight for it, like I was at the door every day, please. Like what else can I do? I didn't even use this. So they kind of threatened me with an NTR, which I didn't want because I knew that if this was the end of the road for this one, man, I can come back,
right.
6 month return, maybe a year. I'll come back. I'm not, I don't quit easy, but that was in. So I went to Tent City and I spent the rest of the time there. So it was cut short. I was devastated. I moped in Tent City for days.
Yeah.
And it was heartbreaking. And it was kind of the first lesson of, not really a lesson, but a realization of like stuff sometimes just doesn't work out. And maybe that wasn't for me at the time, which I fully believe, God has perfect timing, and that's a tough lesson. And I've learned that lesson many times.
Yeah.
You would think I'd be used to it, but every time I'm just like, I guess it's not my time. There's something else.
Yeah.
I got to go do something else. And for me, fitness being my number one hobby and my outlet, I took my 2 days to mope about it, be sad. I sat alone in the DFAC and cried over this at McCall. And I think on the third day that I was in Tent City, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go and ask cadre if I can use the gym. Because now whatever's coming next, we have to prepare for. Like, we have to do something. You have to keep going. There's just no reason to be so down about this that I lose my sight on goals.
Right.
Again, whatever those goals are, you may not exactly know what it is. And I didn't. But it's something else. So if it's something else and this didn't work out for whatever the something else is, I might as well get back into, the mindset of something else is coming, or right. I have to do more.
Ready to pivot.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a tough lesson, but it's an important lesson because it can be very intense, especially for Army things, because you do put a lot of work into stuff and something cannot work out like that.
Right.
And it can be over. And, it's important to not, I didn't want to look at it as a failure.
Yeah.
Everybody will be like, oh, she failed SFAS. And I hear that a lot. Yeah, I didn't make it through. But it's whether it be looked at by somebody else like a failure, like, I can't do that, because then that starts to affect everything else that I do because of that one failure.
Sure.
So that was the end of, like I say, SFAS 1. It was tough. It was rough. I thought, I was so disappointed. I didn't want to go back and tell Sergeant West that I didn't make it. I was upset about that. But it just wasn't the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So leaving there, are you on the track now to go to the 82nd, or are you going to get another shot at it? So
I knew, I figured that the 82nd was coming. Just because I understood that, I was a female infantryman. There's only so many places I can go.
And you're airborne qualified.
And I'm airborne qualified.
And we've already spent the money to send you to airborne school.
Exactly. So I figured that was coming. So I was kind of like in preparation mentally for that, because now I was going from SWIC to the regular Army, and I had not spent any prior time in the regular Army. So that was going to be a whole different atmosphere than SWIC. And I knew it was going to be like that, but then I also didn't know how bad it was going to be. You just don't know.
Yeah.
So you spend the time. So I got dropped summer of 2019. You spend the time out processing from SWIC, getting your paperwork together. I pulled a couple of duties for them. I worked at it. I think it was range 57 for a little while, doing whatever they needed me to do. Okay. Playing
Op 4.
Yeah, Op 4 in a way. So I did a couple of things in that transition period, and then I transitioned over to the 82nd. To 1508, 1 Fury in 3rd Brigade. And I got there I want to say September. Yeah, like late August, September of 2019. Now, this is, again, a big transition for me because I wasn't used to the big Army.
Yeah.
I had no prior experience in the big Army, and I quickly understood that 18 X-rays who don't make it in SFAS, they go to the 82nd, and then they just become the SFAS failures. And that's what they're known for. Like, the 82nd is made up of 18 X-rays. And I was like, oh gosh, like now I'm in this group and everybody thinks I'm a failure. Which, like, nobody understands or knows, like, the time and effort you put into something. So
Sure.
I thought, well, what are they to tell me that I can't do anything? And at this point, one Fury has deployed. They are gone. So I got there and they had a rear D, and they were about to ship their last few over, like their late deployers. And I found out that I was going to be deploying pretty much a month and a half-ish, give or take, after I got there, which was a deployment definitely kind of didn't factor into my timeline that I built, because I thought that's not going to happen until I get to group.
Right.
God willing, that's when you deploy. Was definitely not expecting a deployment so soon. So that was, and there was a bit of a, like, are we going or am I not? Am I going to in process in time? So, but it turned out that I did. So I was there at Rear D. There's nobody really there. And so I met my platoon while they were in Afghanistan.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was brand new, there's definitely, you're going into a family, basically, people who have been together for a while, and then you're the new one. And I was like, well, there's definitely going to be an element of that, but I still was, very secure in myself. I knew that things were, going to be fine if I worked really hard. I had no anxiety over what was going to be asked of me. It was just more of how was that reception going to be?
Right.
That
makes sense.
And
how was that? So you deploy right in. Mm-hmm. Where was your platoon?
At the time, they were in not Bagram, but Kandahar. They were in Kandahar at the time. And later, we spent a little time in Kandahar, and then we moved out to a FOB that was, I can't remember the name of the province it was in, but it was called FOB Thompson. That's where we spent. It was very, very small. Okay. It was about, I think, 60 miles from the border of Iran, I believe. It was out in the middle of nowhere, is what it felt like. I wish I could remember the province, but I can't. But we made a stop in Bagram, and I stayed there for about a week, and then we went to Kandahar, and that's where I met everybody. Was in Kandahar.
How long had they been there?
I don't remember. Maybe a couple of months. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe a couple of months, like 2 or 3. I can't remember exactly how late of a deployer I was. All of this happened really fast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really fast. Yeah, it was kind of like I told my parents, I'm going to the 82nd. This is kind of where I'm at in the timeline here. And then all of a sudden I was like, hey, I'm deploying. If you want to see me before I go, y'all better come up to North Carolina. The reception was okay. It was not great, but it wasn't terrible. And I think a lot of the fact that they had already been over there for a while and they were receiving a new infantry female was probably what contributed to that the most. Again, I was already very confident and knew that I was going to do things and be motivated. It's just a matter of establishing yourself, in a platoon.
Giving yourself the opportunity, or having the opportunity to fit in. Exactly.
And I knew that it didn't mean that I had to like everybody and not everybody had to like me. And that was okay. And I was aware that there was a lot of people who didn't like me and people who did. And that was fine. There was another female who was in the platoon who I was grateful that there was one. And so I made friends with her, and we didn't have a whole lot in common. But again, like when you're the only two, there was a friendship that was made there. And so we became roommates too when we got back. And so I was grateful for that. And we're still friends to this day too, which is great, Nice. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was just great, but it was it was what it was, I was expected to, they gave me the Joe packet with all the standard information you're supposed to learn about, your position, or I was in weapons squad. So, I humped the 240 quite a bit because we were making the new person do that. And again, it was tough, but again, I tried to look at it as, okay, well, I'm just going to make sure that they can't smoke me because I'm pretty fit. I just was like, I just don't want that to be a thing,
How was that deployment overall?
Overall, it was pretty good. I made the best of it, I think, and I'm really grateful that I got to do it.
Were you busy?
There were days when we were busy and days that we weren't. Again, like the deployment, the schedule, like day to day, was like pretty predictable. And I also, while I was deployed, started to, understand that, hey, like my next goal is going to be Ranger School. So this is coming up. What can I do now to prep myself for that? And I will say that I think when I brought that up the first time, there definitely wasn't a lot of support there. It was just kind of like okay, good luck, Yeah. But I kind of knew there, I was like, all right, well, this is coming up. So I'm, that's on the horizon. What do I do to prep for that?
Sure.
But I made some friends, and I got an opportunity to work with group. There were 2 different groups that were out there with us at different times. So that was a good experience as well. So overall, it was a pretty good experience. And again, you make the best of it, because I was happy, I guess you could say, to be there, because I knew that this might be the last one.
Yeah. No, it's good that you got that experience, got that opportunity. Ranger School, when I was in the 82nd, it seemed like everybody was trying to go to Ranger School. That was kind of a thing across the board. You knew that if you wanted to make rank, and if you wanted to, eventually be a platoon sergeant in the 82nd, you weren't going to be able to do it without your Ranger tab. So it was very competitive to go. And of course, this is back in 99, 2000. How was it similar when you were going?
I think so, yeah. It was definitely something that I would say would be expected. Now, I will also say that there was a lot of people who didn't want to go. Yeah. And I think that that's just, they don't want to put in the time or the effort to prep and then go through it.
Right.
Because we all know the Ranger School can take a long time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it was very competitive.
It is.
I know for us, you had to go do pre-Ranger PT with the battalion and basically get put on a short list there in order to be able to go. So it was hard to get into. It wasn't easy to be able to go to Ranger School. So, well,
for that, there also was a pre-Ranger for us too. So the 82nd has a pre-Ranger program, CERT, and it was required that you go through CERT and you graduate CERT and then you go.
Well, I mean, you had to compete to even go to pre-Ranger, right? Like it was a pain in the butt.
So for that, I wouldn't say there was a lot of competition to go to CERT. That would just be, or it seemed it was just a matter of putting your packet together, showing up for their PT test, and of course, if you fail the PT test, then you go home that day.
Right.
So that wasn't, I wouldn't say competitive, but I didn't find that there was a whole lot of motivation, personal motivation, to go and do that for other people around me. I had kind of thought that maybe there would be more, but I found out that that wasn't always the case. Now, there were definitely a few who would go, and there were several who would go to CERT and then just not go to Ranger School or not go back. Yeah. You don't want to do that. But for CERT, not really. For the pre-Ranger, I wouldn't say it was super competitive, although it was a really good program. Like the 82nd had a great pre-Ranger program.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you're coming back off that deployment. How long of a gap between the end of the deployment when you actually got to go to Ranger School?
We came back in the spring, and we came back straight into COVID. So COVID, I didn't realize how bad COVID had gotten while we were overseas. Yeah. So we knew it was there. We didn't know how bad it was. So when we got back, there was no families there. There was nobody there. There was nobody there. It was. And they had doctors on the plane that were checking us and all that. And we went straight into a quarantine period at Bragg. Wow. So it was 2 weeks of quarantine straight off of the plane. So that was a huge blow to morale.
That doesn't make any sense at all.
It was so bad. They were like, well, if you're married, that your husband or wife can come pick you up, and I was like, oh my gosh, what a time to not be married. Right? I was doing anything to get out of going into this quarantine. They called it Fob Patriot, and it was just out in the training area at Bragg. It was some tents and then like a little DFAC they put together. And then eventually they brought out some beaver fits. Wow. So miserable. It was so miserable. I hated it so much. But once we got through that, we went into COVID and they started doing like the minimal manning type of thing. Yeah. And all the gyms closed. So I'm still trying to prep for Ranger School, and I, didn't really follow any programs. I knew what I needed to do for it. So I'm just like lifting anything. I bought a sandbag and I would put it in the back of my car and I would carry it around to places like trails in the woods and work out with it. Or I found this big sand pit at Bragg that I would go work out in just for some, instability in the foundation. Pull-up bars, running. I just would do anything and everything I could. That summer was when I decided to take my last college class. So I enrolled for that class.
And this is statistics.
Yeah, this is psychological statistics. I enrolled in that class. And it was not the short summer classes, because some summer classes are only like a month long. It was like the 2 month long one, 2.5. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like, I have time. I can do this. Well, I enrolled for the class. And then 3rd Brigade decided to put on an EIB, which we all were required to do.
Right.
And so I thought, oh my gosh, like I can do both of these. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Sure. I did not know.
14 hours out in Area J. And
I did not know that it, again, new to the big Army. Didn't know about the EIB train up, what that looked like, and then going into EIB itself. So I didn't realize that it was going to take so much time. So what ended up happening is that I had to I didn't tell anybody that I signed up for this class. I just did it and then paid for it with like deployment money.
Because it's all online, right? Mm-hmm. So yeah.
I paid for it with deployment money. I bought the books. I had to buy a new computer because it had to run these particular program that we would put all these psychological statistics in for these studies that we were building. That was the class. You build a study and then you put it into the program and then you write a paper off of that. And these papers were anywhere from like 12 to 18 pages long, and they all had to be done a certain way, had to be written a certain way, and you had to have all your resources, all the data. Very time consuming.
Yeah.
I told my PL all the time, I was like, I signed up for this class. I did not know we were doing this. And my professor, I talked with him about it, and I had to explain kind of how EIB is, which is kind of hard to explain to somebody who doesn't know.
Yeah.
And he was very understanding to the best of his ability. And he's like, okay, whatever you can do, just send it. Just do. Here's what is required.
Right.
Just do it as you can. Just do it. Make sure it's all in by the end of the class, which was so phenomenal for me.
Yeah.
And I felt so bad for the student assistant.
Right. It was great in that.
Because my things wouldn't come in until like 3:00 in the morning. I would wake up. We'd wake up early. We'd go out to the train up site, do the train up all day, and then I'd come home. I'd sit down in front of the desk, and I would like just crank out as much work as I could, and also work out because I'm still trying to make sure I'm in the best shape that I can be for Ranger School. So I'm like not going to bed till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And it reminded me of college. And that's where I was like, I'm so grateful for that because it's coming in handy right now.
Not that you can really condition yourself for that, but.
Yeah, I've been telling myself that you can, because I to this day, like I do need a little more sleep, but to this day I'm like, 20 minutes of sleep.
Easy.
I got you. So that was rough. So we were doing, the EIB thing, and I'm trying to, get as much work done as possible while still making good grades on this. And it's a demanding class, especially if it's condensed, because that is a 1 semester or 2 semester class. And having to do it all at once is bad. It was so bad. I regretted it was bad. I remember standing at the table where they had all the commo equipment for EIB.
Yeah.
And I was just falling asleep standing up there holding the inhibitor or something. I was just falling asleep while I was doing it because I was so tired. We went through EIB, and then at the end of that, we got some leave. So I took a week of leave. I went home and I set up my computer at my parents' dining room table and never left for a week. I cranked out.
Just finished it up.
I cranked out like 8 or 9 studies in a week. And I would sit at the table all day, all night. I'd go to the couch across the hallway and I'd sleep for like, a couple hours. And then I'd just go back to the table. My mom said she felt so bad for me because it was so bad. But it got done. And I submitted my last paper 30 minutes before 12 o'clock the last day. And it worked out. And I felt so bad for that teacher's assistant because my stuff was coming in so late or at different times. And then she had to critique it, get it back to me. I'd have to make corrections and then send it back in. It was the worst. It was bad, but it got done and I got finished and I completed my bachelor's. And that was, of course, one of the things that I wanted to do.
Yeah. So 2020 was
that was a hell of a year.
I was going to say, right. You complete your first deployment to, Afghanistan, you complete your psychology degree, your EIB.
I didn't get EIB. No, nope. It was, what was it? I can't remember what it was. Oh yeah.
Shift from the known point and hand grenades.
It was stupid. It was, the feed tray and the feed tray cover on the 240 is held together by one pin.
Yeah.
Right? It's the 2 different assemblies, but that pin belongs to both of them.
Yeah.
And I disassembled it, which was totally fine. It was on this big, I remember it was on this like big plank, this like plywood plank. And you disassemble it and you put it next to its label. And I did all that. And then the guy's like, well, you have time remaining. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm looking, I'm like, everything's here. But I put that pin
back in.
No, I put it in the hole where the rounds feed through, just so it wouldn't roll off the plank. Because if it did, of course, that thing's this big, So if it did, it was going to fall in the dirt. And I thought we would lose it. And you can't do that, apparently.
Okay.
So I was like, okay. So I didn't get that, but then again, another thing I was like, that'll roll back around at some point.
It sure will.
Yeah, I'm not gonna.
That's I was gonna be extremely impressed that you got it on your first time. So for the viewers, right, EIB is a monster. It's every infantry task that we I don't know how many there are, 30 some odd. I can't remember.
Like that, yeah.
And you have to go through and test one after another and get them perfect by EIB standard, which is very difficult to do. And it ends with a 12-mile road march, but you have to do day and night land nav. So that train up that we were just discussing, that's probably 6 weeks?
I think it was a little less. I think it was a little less than that. And I think the reason for that was probably COVID. Because it was during that time. I want to say it was like 2 or 3 weeks.
So you're out there from 6 a.m. till
all day.
A lot of times 2000, sometimes. And when you do the night land nav, somebody gets lost. They always do. So you're out there till 2 a.m, back out there at 6 the next day. And it's really brutal. And you're going through that while trying to complete your college course. Wow. You are a beast.
I couldn't believe it.
You are a glutton.
I couldn't believe that coincided for me at that. I thought, oh my gosh. But then again, I didn't know it was going to be so bad. I didn't realize the train up was going to be that way.
You didn't know what to expect with a lot of this stuff.
No. And I thought like my PL did this little memo for me for my instructor to like verify. Yes, I was going through this and this is the reason it is this bad, because I was trying to tell my professor, I was like, apparently we're going to be doing this from, morning to night and there's no way out of it. And it was, I'm sure he was like, what in the world is it?
And if you had your EIB already, you would still be out there as an instructor.
As an instructor or a grader. Yep. And it would be probably the same schedule.
Exactly. Maybe even a little bit later because you got to prep for the next day.
Yeah. It was rough. It was, I slept when I submitted that last paper. I just slept. I didn't set an alarm. I just slept
You were
on the
on
couch.
leave and
yeah,
just-
I was like, I'm done. I need to take a moment for myself.
I'm going to finish my leave sleeping.
Yes, absolutely, because that was rough.
Okay, so coming back from leave, okay, hang on just a second. So you're prepping to go to Ranger School. Have you gotten a class date yet?
No, I haven't. I'm at this point, like, I'm still prepping for Ranger School, but I do have to go to 80 seconds pre-Ranger. So that's going to be the first step.
Okay.
So now we're in September of 2020-ish, September 2020. And so I'm still prepping to go. I've got, the packing list, you get your long packing list together and then all the paperwork. And so my cert date is in October. So I'm going to cert in October. Again, I didn't really have expectations going into this. I was just like, okay, well, I have to go through pre-Ranger. And I know Ranger School can take a long time to get through because I understand that, you might recycle. So I'm just carving out time. I'm carving out 6 months of my life to get this done. And I'm trying to make room for, recycle, possible recycle. My sister's getting married in the summer of next month. As long as I'm done before that,
right,
good to go.
I got almost a year.
Yeah, I was like, I think I can do that. Surely I'm not that bad at something that it takes me that long to get through it. But so I go to cert, I go to pre-Ranger in October, and I got kicked back for push-ups from pre-Ranger. First try.
Okay.
So push-ups was something that I didn't feel like I needed help in. Again, I'm a very fit person. I passed everything else.
Yeah.
But my push-ups were good enough for whatever the reason was. And it was kind of a bit of a blow, but I was like, okay, well, those just weren't good enough. And so I just kind of got up and, dusted the grass off. And I was like, all right, I'll see you guys next class. Because it was just, I didn't dwell on it. And I didn't think about it being maybe because I'm a female. Because again, like I said before, the moment I started thinking about that, the moment that starts to creep into my mindset for everything,
Sure.
And so I was like, okay, well, it just wasn't good enough. Then I'll just do more push-ups and come back. And it was as simple as that was. And I came back and they're like, they're targeting you. It was because you're a female. And I'm like, I don't think so. I probably just needed better push-ups. Maybe I needed to go lower, whatever it was.
Okay. So you're not questioning the integrity of the instructor. You're just,
Okay. No, because then I just felt like it was such a waste of energy to focus on that, So I just went back to platoon, did whatever we were doing, continued to work out. I did have a shaved head though, because they required I think they said for females, you could have 1/4 inch of hair for pre-Ranger, but for males, you just had to shave it off. And I was like, 1/4 of an inch, might as well just shave it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I already had a shaved head.
Did that bother you at all going into it?
I definitely didn't like the way it looked, but again, I had months of, I'm going to do this, I'm going to shave my head. And I had longer hair than I do now. Like I had a lot of hair. And it was tough because, I think for females especially, hair is such an identifying thing. It's important to us. And I think that there's a lot to be said for keeping some femininity, especially even if you're in the infantry. And that's one of the ways you can do it. And, for me, at least personally. But I also was like, well, it'll grow back, But I had to tell my mom that. My mom was not happy about that. But yeah, I didn't like it, but it was necessary. Yeah. So I had already done that, and I was like, okay, well, I'm committed to push-ups and being bald. That's fine. I went back in November, and I got kicked back again for push-ups. And I thought, okay, same thing. Just go back to the drawing board, do more push-ups. That's fine. Again, I thought I'm a very athletic, very fit person, and I put a lot of work into that, and I am not afraid of work. So if it just needs more work, then we just do more work. Again, I didn't dwell on it. I just thought, okay, I'll be back. I went home for Christmas. So December, they didn't have a class. I went on HBL. I came back for the January class. Okay. So I think it was like January the 3rd, 2021 or something like that. I showed up for that class and then sailed through the PT test, no problem. So push-ups were fun. I mean, we did the run, we did everything. And so I completed the January 2021 pre-Ranger course.
Okay.
Excellent course. Had a great time. Learned so much about infantry squad tactics, like by the book, you know. I had a lot of, I had a good group of guys that were going. I was the only female. But again, we worked together really well. I never felt any different really, but I had a great time at Pre-Ranger. I learned a lot, and the cadre were phenomenal. I had no issues, and I was very excited about Ranger School coming up. Okay.
So for the audience, does this look anything like Starship Troopers? Are you guys all together in is there separate quarters, separate showers, separate?
No. Okay. So for the 82nd cert, it's about 25 to 30 minutes away from Bragg, and it's way out there. We all were together. So we stayed they had tents out there for us. So it was kind of like the same setup as I had in Tent City. Cots, tents, we all slept together. There were some nights where we slept out in the planning bays, and but I think we only did that like once or twice because it was super cold. And you just kind of go through what your life would be like a mini Ranger school. And they give you the basis of what you need to know for that first phase, for Darby phase. Because Darby phase at the time was squad tactics. Okay. And then once you got to mountains, it was platoon. So we were doing squad tactics first.
Gotcha.
And you do the PT test. We did a swim test. And there was an O course there too. So you do the O course. I did have a separate shower, but I didn't think anything about it. I don't think anybody did really. Yeah. Their showers, it's a small camp, so their showers weren't really big enough there was a separate shower already, and I think that they just kept that, but again, it was never something if it's a separate shower, great. If it's a together shower, fine, whatever, it didn't matter to me. Yeah. And I don't think it mattered to the guys either. But yeah, every day was just kind of like a little mini Ranger school. You had classes, you learned squad tactics, you went out and did PEs. And then the next day you'd get an order, you'd drop an order around 6 a.m. Yeah. You do the order, and then you go out and complete whatever the mission was.
Get graded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. So all prep for Darby. Yeah,
all prep for Darby. And really, I think most places now, a pre-ranger is required to go. Yeah. Except for maybe like Eyebolic. I'm not really sure.
Not sure.
Not sure about that. But it was a great course. I needed it too.
Good.
It really gave me, and like I said before, I'm a note taker. So I had just all of the notes. I felt very prepared. And I didn't give a shit about the push-ups, prior to that. I had no, I didn't think about that at all. I was like, I'm so, this is what I need. I really needed this. Yeah. And I'm already bald, so we're like halfway there.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't question it a lot. You just if this is what's happening, this is what's happening, and this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. If I need to do it again, then I need to do it again. I.e., God has a plan, and you're just walking it out, which I really love your attitude about all this so far.
Well, to me, again, it just seemed like a waste of energy to do that, because up to this point, I never felt like there was anything to question, and I definitely didn't want to pull something out of thin air,
sure.
I just didn't have
a victim mentality.
Yeah. There was just no need for it. And again, I didn't do any research. I had no idea how many females had gone or how many didn't make it or whatever. It just didn't occur to me, it wasn't worth it. That information would do nothing for me. Yeah. Who cares, and that's not to say that females going through something isn't a great thing. I think that's awesome. But it wasn't worth me keeping that in my mind to drive me to do something.
Right. So you never did this with the intention of being the first female to do anything or to prove anything other than just prove yourself that you can meet the standard and you can do the things that you're setting your goals at.
Yeah, there was none of that. I did not know. And at the time too, I had been told, I kind of wish I hadn't been told this, but I had already been told that if I made it through, then I was going to be the first lower enlisted female in the infantry to ever get their tab. I was a specialist.
Okay.
And that was told to me, I think right before I left, and I was just kind of like, I didn't, And then afterwards, you know, that was definitely told.
Of course.
But no, it was never, I never thought about my experience of just being a female doing this. It was just more of like, I'm doing this because I can. And this would be, you know, I was in the infantry, and this would definitely be something that will help me. You know, I want to do this.
Yeah.
I understand fully that it's going to suck. And you know, is there a possibility that maybe somebody might treat me different? 100%. But there's no reason for me to look for that or think that that's going to affect my experience and what I make it.
So with your career path, 11 Bravo, what are you hearing about Ranger School? Is this, hey, this is your stepping stone, this is a leadership school? What are you being told, and why Ranger School? Pretty
much those things. This is a leadership, the Army's premier leadership school. This is like the bread and butter for the infantry. Like this is what you need to have, or what I should have as an infantry. This is going to help me understand this MOS or my job better. This is going to give me the opportunity to work with other people who I've never met before in my life. And we, you know, are required to come together to make something happen, to accomplish a mission. Yeah. Like this is good skills. This is something that I should go to. I should do this. And then there's also like the challenge part that I like. It's hard, you know. Oh, it's hard and it sucks, and you know it's just terrible. And I'm like, oh, okay, sounds like fun. Like you know, I'm sure it's not that bad. I can suck, you know, with the best of them, I guess. And but yeah, it was something that I wasn't told I had to do, but it was something that I wanted to do, and there were a lot of reasons for that. It never was, oh, I want to do this because it's going to make me stand out more because of my gender. Yeah. You know? Although I did have an understanding and grasp the fact that there were not many of us. I knew like, oh, some have come through. It's not that. It definitely should be, everybody should be used to it by now. At the time, there were only 60, I think maybe 50. I would number 66 in total. Okay. I think they were keeping up with it at this time. I have no idea what it is now, but yeah. So there were a few who had gone through, but for the infantry, nobody except for like officers. A few officers are already gone. Okay, I didn't really look at the numbers enlisted compared to officer compared to NCO or lower enlisted, however they're saying that now. What I was understanding though was about 15 a year. So out of the 10 years from 15 to 25, I think there was roughly 150 graduates. Mm-hmm. And I knew none of that either, just because I never once looked into it ever. I only did in preparation for this interview because I was curious. But so here you are in 2020 or 2021, and you're saying it should be pretty normal. Well, not normal. More common, right? You said you were number 66. Yeah, I it just, again, it never really occurred to me that it was going to be something that was looked at as historic. Oh, it was no, and I don't think it really should be either, in a way, just because we've got males and females who go and do this, and Ranger School itself, it can be difficult, it is hard, but the tasks that are required of you are just like the standard really that we have. It's pretty universal. I mean, anybody, you can do it. Yeah. And so that's kind of how I looked at it. It just didn't seem like something that was unattainable or something that I would get in any way other than just my own discipline and effort ever. And that's just not my way of looking at things. And so when I finished pre-Ranger, I've always been very aware that there's just no other females. There's just not, and so when I got to Ranger School, I did expect a few others. Like there's definitely going to be some more.
Did they send you right away when you came back from pre-Ranger? Or did you go right over to Ranger school?
I did. Work? Yeah, okay. I did. I think we had 5 days to like refit our packing list and get ready to go. Okay. So yeah, there was like a couple times, but at the end of that, like 5 days, we just met back out at the pre-Ranger site and they bussed us down to Benning.
And you started off day 0,
yep.
PT test, layout PT test. What is it, 5 mile run?
Okay. So we got down there the next day, we in-processed and then we did PT tests. And so it was 49 push-ups. It was the older PT test. They've got a new one out now. It was 49 push-ups, 59 sit-ups, 6 pull-ups or chin-ups. They're chin-ups. 6 chin-ups, and then you did a 5 mile run, and you had to do that in 40 minutes. Okay. And then there's the O course, and then the ruck as well that you do. And then there's also like RTTs. You do the Ranger training tasks as well. And at that time, those were a droppable event for us. Okay, so good that you just went through EIB. And did you do a lot of them out at PRC as well? Yeah. Oh, yeah. They hammered
it's all the Ranger stakes and
yeah, Claymore 249, 240. Yeah, we did all of that in pre-Ranger. So which was great because you get reps doing that, and then you go and do it. I think the Claymore was the one that was like getting everybody the most. You go through that full Claymore sequence. I see the light, and you know.
Right.
Yeah. it was. So I went straight into day 0. So for the PT test, we do it at the pit there at Darby, and when I went to do push-ups, they stopped me at 48 push-ups. Of course, the standard is 49. Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay, you got to go to the retest line. And I thought, oh my gosh, if this is happening to me again, there's just no, really. I was kind of upset. I was like, oh my God. So I went to the retest line and I got in line and I did push-ups. They give you a second test. You get like so many minutes to rest. Yeah. And then you do the second test. And I did the second test and I did 49. But there was no like, I was tired, but there was no issue with it. Like I didn't get stopped or I didn't feel like I felt the same as I did when I did the first set, you know? So I just had to do push-ups twice. And then for a minute, I thought maybe, it's not worth thinking about, you know, maybe this guy didn't like me. I don't know. I don't care. I did it the second time and I'm good to go. And after that, you know, the sit-ups was fine. The chin-ups were fine. I did the mile or the 5 mile in, I think it was like 37 minutes or 36. I don't know, something like that. Everything else went fine. Okay. And so there was a moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to come back through this and do this again. But I put it behind me and I was like, I'm in. I made it past the PT test. Everything else is going to be fine. And it was.
Wow. Well, I mean, that's impressive to have to redo your push-ups just 20 minutes later and still get the minimum without an issue. There's always concern that you're going to run into some cadre roulette, I think is what they used to call it, where it's maybe, you know, they call them tab protectors or whatever, or they just met their quota. Maybe they can only have so many students and hey, we got that many in, so come back to the next class. So you said you didn't have any problems the rest of the way. So you went straight through Ranger school?
Yeah, I did. I did. I like to say I used up all my luck in Ranger school because it was 3 looks, 3 goes for me.
Very few people make it through Ranger school without a recycle. Yeah.
Oh no. And I was prepared for it too. I thought, you know, I didn't believe it until I was on the bus going to the next phase. Yeah. But I didn't have any issues.
Nothing.
No, I didn't. I did my best to be an asset to my squad, you know, do what I needed to do, help out. And I met one of there were some other girls who were there. I mean, one of my best friends to this day, she was in Ranger school with me. We were in different companies. We got split up in different companies in mountains, but I met her and I, you know, came out with a best friend and a couple other girls I still am in contact with. I think there were like 4 or 5, but we were in different companies. And I started in Charlie Company for Darby. And the only thing I really didn't like was being class leader. I got picked for class leader from the get-go, and it just stayed, and I hated it so much. But yeah, Darby was fine. Mountains was fine. It was cold. It was really cold, and I hate doing things in the cold.
Yeah, must have been about February.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was in February, early to mid-February. The CWSA, the swim test during RAP week was just, I thought that was the coldest I've ever been in my life. It was awful. But I went through mountains fine. And then Florida. So Florida, I loved Florida because Florida kind of reminds me of home.
Sure.
Because it's hot and humid, and it was early spring, but it was, the weather was starting to get a little bit warmer. So I really, really liked Florida. But my Florida experience was, you get to Florida and you think, I'm almost there. And again, I was just ecstatic that I didn't have to do mountains twice or Darby twice. I had good relationships with my squad, my platoon, no issues, no different treatment in any way, shape, or form.
So peers is a really big thing.
Peers is a big thing in
Ranger School.
Uh-huh.
How are you doing on the peers? I
did fine with peers. I really did. Anybody can give you a bad peer for whatever it is. Sure. It doesn't matter. But I did fine with peers. But I did my best to work with people and to understand that we are all coming from different backgrounds. We may mostly be the same MOS, but we're all going to be different. And I looked at, this is where psychology really came into play, because I thought about Ranger School as this one big experiment, right? And everything that you are doing is controlled for you. When you eat, what your mission is, what you're doing. You cannot control anything except for your reaction to whatever is happening to you. So your reaction to stress that they're inducing by throwing an RD-Sim, or like cutting your timeline short, or you don't have this certain equipment or something, or somebody is just being an asshole, and the only thing that you can control really is how you react to something. And that kind of takes away a lot of stress in a way, because you can just focus on that. But then you add the element of, I'm getting a grade. Like if you're in a leadership position, I'm getting a grade, and my experience depends on this look. Whether that be planning, if you're the PL or PSG squad leader, we had team leader looks, I think, at that time too. So whatever it was, you throw that into it, and it kind of gives people a lot of motivation to work really hard when they're being looked at. Right. But then when they're not, a lot of that motivation kind of dips, So they say that you don't earn your tab by yourself. But, and that's true. Like, everybody has to work for you. So there is an element of having to work together with everybody else in order for everybody to make it through. So that is difficult, but the only thing that you can control is your reaction. Then, if you can kind of focus on that, and that helped me a lot, just personally, because there was just no need for me to be super emotional or be, react to something
that you can't control,
that I can't control.
That is such good advice.
Well, it just helps me so much because, everything, it does suck. I'm bald, I'm cold, and I'm like 12 pounds lighter. And I, having to do all of this on very little sleep and little food. I say little food, but you don't know when you're going to eat. You're going to eat something, but you don't know when. And so instead of focusing on that, which are the things that I can't control, if I can focus on what I can control, then that takes my mind off of all this added shit that's just there to stress me out. So my reaction is really what people are going to see, which plays into peers, plays into like how my looks went, plays into just a day-to-day activity. How much am I helping out? Right. Do I have stuff, to contribute to whatever we're doing at the time? That helped a lot. And that was just something that I learned, just a trick for me, because Ranger School can be stress inducing. It's supposed to be, that's what we're looking at. And in Florida, it's the last phase, and I didn't realize how much that was going to apply, because the later portion of our FTX, my platoon, we lost a Ranger. We had, there was a death in our platoon on the rope bridge during one of our swamp days, which is tragic and terrible to happen, in that type of atmosphere, a training atmosphere. It's trade dog. And that was something that took everybody out of that training mindset, because it's so traumatic that you just kind of snap out of the fact that you are in Ranger school. It is controlled, but this thing has happened. And so I think all that training kind of came into effect right there, because that's definitely something that we didn't see coming. And so the reaction after that was really important for us, because we all witnessed it.
Right.
But even without that, which, we don't want that to happen,
Yeah.
It is a good way to handle not only Ranger school, but I think, just life in general. And I thought about that class I took during AIB, because all these studies that we were having to pull data from or design, it was about the reactions, like human behavior.
Yeah.
How are you reacting to this? So overall, that was my approach to Ranger school. And I'm not saying that if you do that, you're going to be 62 and through. Yeah. There's some luck in there as well, for sure. But it really helps that mindset going in, because it is a lot, it is a lot.
Yeah. Well, as you say, as you sit there and describe it always reminds me of the serenity prayer, right? Mm-hmm. There's things that we're not going to be able to control. And the sooner you can grasp that and understand that and just accept it, there are things that are out of your control, and you just gotta walk it out, right? Control how you receive that information and how you react to it.
Yeah.
That's huge. So wow. Right there at the end of your class, you guys are going through that. How did that change the way you looked at what you were doing?
I think that we all kind of realized that even though we're in this training atmosphere, like, things do still happen. And since then, there's been so many things that have changed as far as like protocols and the way they do things. And now being an RI in Florida, I can see that change. But it really stunned, I think, everybody, just because you don't expect it. This is somebody that you have been with every day in this phase. Yeah. He was a recycle, I believe, and so he joined our platoon for that phase. And he was a great kid. His last name was Rekenyas. He was in Ranger Bat, and I had spent literally all day, all that phase with him, but all that day with him specifically, because I was his AG at the time. Okay. And so just to have somebody just gone that you had, bonded with, doing something that's really hard, it was really tough for a lot of us. But, as sad as it is, it kind of hit home for me. Again, we talk about like God's timing and his plan. And I got really upset for a little while, because I thought, why is it that I am doing this and doing fine and getting through this and all this, but this young man did not get an opportunity to go home to his family after Ranger school? Yeah. Something that you're just training. We're not out there in combat, So I was upset for a little while, and but I just kind of had to reel it in and think about, well, it's not really my place to question. And that's a tough lesson. Yeah. And I have learned that lesson a lot, but it did stun us for a while, but we had to kind of pull back and get back into the mindset of training, because we continued the FTX. Stuff didn't stop. Yeah. We went back to camp, and we kind of, you did the little investigation. We talked about it. And then the next day we got an order, and we went back into the FTX. We still had time, and afterwards there was a little memorial for him that we did. And of course we did our best to get our mind back into what we were doing and what was required of us. But I think it shocked everybody, you know?
Well, undoubtedly. It's never easy, to deal with the loss of, another student, a friend, really anything in training. It hits that much harder because, you always got to see if it was avoidable.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, a lot of changes have been made, and a lot of things have been improved, I think, since then. And I get to see that now. I think about that because, we're operating in the same areas that happened. So it's unfortunate, but, good things do come out of it. And, we're able to provide new and updated ways of doing things and training and quality of training for students that come through now. And, that is, sacrifice is not necessary for that. Yeah. But you live and you learn,
Sure. Okay. So take me to Ranger School graduation.
Ranger School graduation was cold and wet, and nobody was there because it was still a COVID class.
Oh.
Yeah, it was, I remember it was, all I had left was a summer uniform because we had just been in Florida, and I was told that summer uniforms were best in Florida. It was great. But when we got back to Benning, it was cold again, and it rained that morning, and we were just standing out in the PT pit, and that's where my cadre put my tab on. I was like, congrats. And so my parents came up the next day and spent some time with me. But yeah, it was, I think they may have live streamed it, but I kind of don't remember. I probably was really sleepy, but I was just happy it was over. I was really happy that it was over.
Sure.
Yeah. I was like, I did this and I'm so excited. And then I realized we still had to go to CIF. And that's like the bane of my existence, really, in the Army. So then I realized I had to push my buggy of all my equipment through CIF, and it wasn't over yet. That was like the last phase of Ranger School was CIF phase. So, but yeah, it was rewarding, but it rained on us again. So.
Okay, so now you're going back to the 82nd. Mm-hmm. You've got your tab.
Yep.
You're a specialist. I am. Are you a team leader? Or are you still in weapons school?
I was a team leader. I moved over to our recon platoon, our scout platoon.
Nice.
I moved over there, and I spent some time there as an ASL. And I was pretty almost immediately over there. But yeah, life back in the 82nd definitely came with a bit more recognition just because of the tab.
Oh yeah.
Which I was and wasn't prepared for. I wasn't prepared for the amount. I knew that there was going to be some. But I think with attention, it really, what you do, knowing how to handle it and what to do with it and making sure that it is positive, because I wanted it to be positive, because that's a reflection on me. Yeah. It's a reflection on the uniform, and even more so, I think, than the tab, because the tab is not my personality, or I don't identify by it really, but it's a reflection on how I am as, at the time, a specialist, or corporal, because I was corporal for a little while, Corporal Jackson, or Julianne Jackson. Like I said, the Jackson name is very important to me, and it is the same in the Army as well. So there came a lot of attention, and I became very well known, but I wanted to make sure that it was all for the right reasons, and that attention came from the tab, but I wanted. I didn't want it to be my not my identity, So there was a few times where I had to make sure that didn't interfere with what I was trying to do, just as my job, because people come back with their tabs all the time, male or female, doesn't really matter. But I'm going to get a bit more of a spotlight just because I am, So I want to make sure that doesn't interfere with what I was trying to do, and just do whatever my job was at the time.
Okay. Were there, now that you have your tab, are leaders coming to see you to seek out opportunities as far as, you being the first lower enlisted female to earn your Ranger tab? You're kind of the poster child, if you will,
100%.
for, recruitment. So what's going on with that?
There was a poster child aspect to that. And again, like I said, I want if I'm going to get the attention, I want it, to make sure I remain, a positive example for males and females.
And this is a positive thing. This is helping our numbers.
It is.
Especially during that time, our numbers were dropping considerably.
Yeah. I've never kind of really thought, I definitely want to be a good example, but there's always an aspect of, I don't know why you would, look up to me. I haven't really done anything, it's just a way of thinking. And I still think that too, but cause I'm doing things that anybody can do, you know what I mean?
Sure, but they just haven't.
Yeah, they just haven't, or I don't think that everybody needs to, but you can. But yeah, there came with with the tab, there came making the circles. I did get put into a network that allowed me to talk with a lot of people, and I will encourage anybody to go to Ranger School. Really, I would. If they want to. If you don't want to, then it's going to be exceptionally miserable for you. Yeah. And you may not get out of it what you need to, what you want to. But there I did do the poster child type of thing, and that did open a lot of doors for me to meet a lot of people, and I'm very grateful for that. And I will never say that was a bad thing. It was kind of tiresome sometimes, for sure. And, like I said, it does come with a lot of attention, a lot of positive and a whole lot of negative. And I just have always tried to handle that with grace and remain steadfast in myself. Because sometimes, that negative energy or that negative attention can be really bad. But I've been real fortunate with supportive command and supportive friends with this. And again, the foundation that I was given and the grounding that I got was absolutely instrumental in handling any of that attention, for sure. Yes, I've gotten to talk with a lot of people. I don't know how good of a recruitment I am, to be honest with you, because, I'm sure there's, males who are like, oh, she can do it, I can do it. Maybe I'm not the best example for you, but I don't think anybody should look at it that way. It should be here's an opportunity. If you have an opportunity, go and do it. I did it, but it doesn't mean that I'm super special, but I did it, and you can do it too if you want to.
Yeah. Again, you said it that, really anyone can do it if they put their mind to it. You're just the first one that, at that time that did that, which for the recruitment piece of it, it opens doors for a lot of people out there. Right. I didn't know a whole lot about the military, but assuming going in nowadays, you've got a lot more YouTube, you got a lot more opportunities to really understand what it is you're going to get into. And I think for females out there watching, this is a whole other job that they didn't have, pre-2015.
Yes.
And now that you've spent the time, we're 11 years in, you're really giving a good example of what life could look like for a female, in the infantry, a female in the Rangers.
Yeah. And I hope so. And this is where I will say that as a female in the infantry, I'll just talk about that broadly first. The infantry is what I like to kind of call, it could be a gray area with a spotlight. And then the reason for that is just because there's it's a hot topic, females in combat arms. Yeah. And I don't want to deter anybody from not joining or not wanting to do that, if that's something you want to do, for sure. But what I will say is that while I've always said equal opportunity is great, that doesn't mean that it's going to be equal effort. So you have to realize that it might take a little bit more effort to be successful there. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that. It is a great job. I have fully enjoyed my time here. I don't know if I'm going to be here doing combat arms forever for my entire career, but I've been very successful in it. But I'll be the first to say that it's not for everybody at all. And that's okay. If it's not for you, it's not for you. I've been successful because I've worked really hard. I'm very fortunate in the fact that I have athletic ability. I'm built for this. I believe that I have been able to harness what I've needed in order to be successful here. And it has not been easy, and it never will be. I think that it won't be easy for anybody. But it's important to realize that it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that it is. I think anybody can do it, but not everybody should do it, if that's a better way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense.
And for females too, like that, it's definitely not for us all.
Yeah, the dedication that you talk about just throughout. I mean, even before you got into college, you were an extremely dedicated person. As soon as you put your mind to something, that's what you put all your efforts towards. And it seems like that's really what it takes in this job, right? If you want to be successful in combat arms and special operations, you really have to marry the job, and you really have to put forth all efforts in. Otherwise, you're just going to get passed up. I mean, it's one of those things you can suck it up and you can really go hard for a year, become successful. But then if you can't continue that high output, you're just going to get left behind. Yeah.
And there might come a time too where, you can't meet that standard for that particular job, or it's interfering with maybe other goals or, things that you want to do. And that's okay. And that's something that I've, come to realize in my last, couple of years, is that there's other things that I can do and that I want to do. How can I fit that into the job that I'm doing now?
Right.
And that's a scary thing as well, just because you're used to something for so long, or you've been doing something for so long, and those goals have always been within that one job. And it's hard sometimes for us to feel comfortable with having other goals that are outside of the military.
Sure.
And realizing that it's kind of a scary thing, because you don't know how to move out of that job in order to accomplish something else that you might want. Well,
I mean, you talked about it when you got back from the deployment. You said, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and finish my degree now. While I'm doing, we're just redeploying. Shouldn't be that bad. It's only 2 months. And it's, sure as shit, the Army says, nope, you're going to do EIB, and we're going to, you have to be married to this thing.
Yeah.
And for you to be successful during this, you got to put all efforts into it. If you try to be halfway in, halfway out, then you're going to come up short somewhere. So, having that good plan going in, I think is also important. And
I love a plan, and that's the way that I am. And it's hard for me not to have one, a plan, a purpose, a goal at all times. I stay busy. I, do things, and that gives me a lot of fulfillment. And I will say that the whole idea, which I feel like has been a recurring theme in my life, and for most people, I think everybody's life, really, the God's timing thing. It is sometimes difficult for me, to understand that it is not really in my hands. As much as I love to plan and do things, it's really not. And that's hard for somebody who really wants to know what's happening next. And I want to take a peek at the blueprint for my life. And I can't do that all the time. And I've really been relying on that idea that God's timing is perfect. And because, we, especially in the military, we do things for so long, for however long your contract is, or, if you've got a broadening assignment, you're only going to be there for so long. Yeah. And then you're going to move on to the next thing. And there's some unknown there, and there's some unknown there for me as well. Like with as much success as I've had, I still want to stay in the military. I still want to do, really cool and big things, but I also want to do other things. Like I might want to have a family one day, and that's something that you have to plan for. And it's difficult sometimes to think about that. And as a female, if I could be candid, very, very, very few times, if at all, do you ever get asked in the combat arms, do you want to have a family? Because you know how it's probably kind of difficult to do that. You know, I would imagine that it would be difficult to do that being in the combat MOS or doing, you know, as difficult a job or training as much, I guess, as the infantry does. And I think that that's just an example of like another goal that you might have. I think it's a little bit different for men because obviously there's, you know, different roles there.
Sure.
But yeah, it's the whole idea of like, I have tried to do, you know, keep my contracts as close to me as possible so I can control what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. Sometimes that control is taken away from you and then you just kind of feel like you're floating, and that can cause, you know, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress. And that happens, I think, a lot in the military because the military offers a very wide variety of things that you can do. But everybody kind of does get really sucked into the job.
Right.
And that's all they are. And that's all that becomes. And before you know it, you look up and that's all you have. You know, and that's difficult. That's hard.
It is. It's hard to manage. I know when I was in, a lot of the guys were paying attention to their education. So they were like you know, they were taking care of classes on the side because they didn't want to get so sucked into this is my identity. This is all I have going on. But it's that double-edged sword because how are you the absolute best at your job that you can be if, you know, half your time is dedicated to school and family and friends and social life? Mm-hmm. Like, how do you do that? I know when we start talking operators and really those, and you and I both know who they are. I think you're one of them where they dedicate so much time to the job. You just end up being head and shoulders above everybody else, like really quickly. Mm-hmm. And you end up getting sucked into these specialty jobs and it really does require you to be married to it. Mm-hmm. You know, so I want to kind of go back to your career real quick. So from, and again, I feel like we're turning a little bit from your platoon time in the 82nd. Mm-hmm. How did you end up out at 6th RTB?
So I had platoon time. I spent a year, I believe it was a year there. So we went, I got back from Ranger School in April of 2021. I joined the scout platoon, and then, so February 2022, I spent that whole year in the scout platoon. February 2022, we left for Poland. Because it's just in response to the aggression that Russia was showing. Russia had not invaded yet, but we were over there just kind of we know it's coming. We don't know when, but we're here.
Right.
I will go back. Yeah, this is a turn. Probably one of the worst times of my life. I absolutely hated that because we kind of went over there so quickly. There was no plan. So we were literally out in the woods in hooches for almost a month, just living in the snow. In the woods. That was it. That's all we did. Now, eventually, as months went on, like they brought some tents out there and we built it up a little bit. But we were there for a long time. I think we packed bags they had 2 weeks and it ended up being like 4 months.
Oh, wow.
So it was rough. And I did hate the cold, still hate the cold. And there was nothing to do. You know, so the good idea ferries everywhere, and we're trying to figure out how we can train. And we ended up doing later on. Russia did invade, but we weren't there to do anything. We did not have, you know. I'm sure there were things going on that I didn't know about at my level.
Sure.
But we didn't do anything. We were just there. So eventually it just kind of became us coming up with our own training. And I did all of that with the scout platoon. We had an opportunity to go out and to visit some of the cities much, much later towards the end of that mobilization, I guess you could say. So I got to visit Auschwitz. I visited Krakow, which was fun and cool. Not Auschwitz was not fun, but Krakow was fun.
Yeah.
And then when I got back from that, I went out. We got back, and then that fall, I left One Fury to go be pre-ranger cadre at the same pre-ranger that I went to. Okay. So I spent a year there.
As cadre?
As cadre.
So basically came back from ranger school, spent right at a year in the Scouts, right? Got to deploy to Poland, came back. Now you're going out to be.
Yeah. And there's like, training that we're doing. Of course,
Sure.
A2nd has a tremendous training schedule. And so I did, live fires and training and all that in between there.
But you got to do some team leader time.
Yeah, for sure. And so I went out to be pre-Ranger cadre, and I was there for a year. So 2020, we're thinking like into 2022, 2023, I have to like think about all this. So I was there for a year. So I got to work with Ranger students who were, prepping to go. And I got some experience, teaching the classes, squad tactics, and going out and doing pre-Ranger things basically. And I figured maybe RI was coming up, and I thought, oh, this is good because it'll give me some practice doing this at a lower level, I didn't know if that was the case. I figured it was either going to be drill sergeant or RI just because of the position I was in.
But not recruiter?
Not recruiter. No, I didn't think they were going to do that, honestly, just because I was infantry at headline time. And I thought as a tabbed female infantry, maybe probably like one of your only enlisted at the time still, you're either going to send me to be a drill sergeant or you're going to send me to be an RI. And sure enough, it became an RI. So I got the word that was going to happen. I was really hoping that it was going to be either 5th or 6th, preferably 6th, because to me, it felt better to be away from the flagpole, which 4th is right there at Benning, and I thought that maybe if we were doing this and we were sending a female to be an RI, I knew that was going to come with a lot of attention and expectation. And I thought that maybe it'd be better if I was at 6 and kind of hidden in the swamp.
Right.
It would, allow me to do my job a little bit freer in a way,
That makes sense.
Yeah. And so
less visits.
Exactly. I did forget to mention though that after Poland, I did SFAS again.
Oh,
Forgot about that. I did SFAS twice. So Poland, towards the end of Poland, I was training up for SFAS, and I went back in October of 2022. And dang, I've done a lot. Okay.
You have done a lot.
Yeah. So I went back to SFAS. I can't believe I skipped that whole thing, but went back to SFAS. I trained up for it in Poland. And great train up, by the way. If you're going to train up, Poland's a great place to do it. We didn't really have a lot of workout equipment. Much later, when they built the camp up, they brought out some weightlifting equipment. So I really had a ruck and some rocks and a lot of mountain. So it was just really on you. We were in the middle of the woods, but there was a very small private airfield that the Army was renting out for us.
Okay.
And so I would just ruck like back and forth, up and down this airfield. Sometimes my battalion commander would join me too.
Here's what you got.
Yeah. And I thought that was great. Like he was Lieutenant Colonel Stone and my Sergeant Major at the time, Sergeant Major Bradshaw, were great. They were super supportive of me when I went through Ranger School, and they were very supportive of like everything else that I did. I was around them a lot, and great influences for me. And Lieutenant Colonel Stone was always down for a workout. I mean, I believe he came from regiment, and he would be out there working out with us, and Sergeant Major Bradshaw too. So they were super supportive. And so I trained up for SFAS in Poland. And then when I got back, I trained up a little bit more in the summer, and then I went in October. So the second time, again, good showing, felt real good gate wheat was fine. I made it out to land nav this time. So I made it to the last night of the Star, was doing fine. And this particular selection trip, of course, this is a couple years after the first one, I felt a little different. I didn't feel different about my performance. My performance was still good. I was keeping up with everybody. I was coming in good numbers.
Yeah.
It just felt a little bit different. I don't know if it was like cadre or if it was just kind of an energy or feeling that I had. It felt, I'm not going to say unprofessional, but it just didn't feel the same. It wasn't what I remembered it being, which was odd for me.
What happened?
I just felt like there was a little bit more targeting type of behavior, if that makes sense. All of the guys that I went through with were great. I still come across, like, I've come across multiple guys that went with me on that or who were with me at that SFAS a lot. I just felt like it was a different selection almost. And I know they rotate cadre, and they had rotated cadre by that time for sure. But, you know, it just felt a little bit more, not quite as much as a gentleman's course, maybe, I guess you could say, as it was the first time, which is tough. But, you know, and again, I was like, okay, well, I'm here. I've made it, you know, this far. I'm still going through, doing well. On the last night of the Star, I got dropped off in Jurassic Park, which is like a very thick area of the Sandhills Game Lands, which is the Star course where that's at. And my first point was down by Scuba Road, which was a long movement.
13.
It was a long time. And I looked at it and I thought, this is going to take me a while. So I'm making my way, you know, down there, and I did get a little turned around. And so I set my rock down, and I pulled my compass out. I was going to shoot an azimuth, I think is what I was doing, reorient myself. And his cadre just like came out of nowhere. I never saw him. He's just like, he spawned out of the earth is what it felt like. And he said, well, you're navigating without your safety equipment, which I didn't understand what that meant, because we had like trackers all over our flick for them to track where we were at. Right. And I was like, okay, this is my safety equipment and it's on me, so I don't understand what you were talking about. And he's like, well, your flares are in your ruck. And that is safety equipment. I didn't think about the 2 flares that were in the top flap of my ruck. But I could touch my ruck, and I still had my rifle on me, so I didn't leave anything. So I didn't understand exactly what he meant, but it was because I had set my ruck down. Is what I got from it. So I was like, okay. And really, truly at that point, when I got my stuff and I walked over to the cadre truck, and I was like, I know it's over. At that point, I kind of thought I was kind of given a piece that this is not for me. I'm not supposed to do this. I tried, and I tried again. And it was a kind of a sad relief in a way, because I knew, I was like, I have done what I have set out to do. And I thought that this was it. I've in the road from like SFAS 1 to 2, everything that I had done here, I definitely wanted to try again, but being a Green Beret, it may not be my goal anymore. And that's okay. And I accepted that. Okay. Again, I didn't get bogged down with the failure. I was definitely upset because I was leaving my friends too. Like I made some really good friends with that in that round, but
kind of feel like you're letting people down.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And you know, there's always a little bit of anger too. Like, I trained so hard for this. Like, what does this mean? Why? But I really did. I was like, you know what? It's not meant for me to be in that space. No. And that's okay. And I get that now. I'm being told no.
So was that part of the brief or something that you couldn't,
I really don't remember.
Set your ruck down?
Yeah, I really don't remember.
I don't remember ever. I mean, of course, I'm sure it's completely different, but I specifically remember taking my ruck off and throwing it over a creek so I could then jump across the creek. Yeah. But it didn't even dawn on me, the safety gear thing, but okay.
Yeah. And again, I was like, it wasn't really going to benefit me to argue too much. Yeah. You know? And it's not that I just like kind of like laid down and died, you know, that's not it at all. Yeah. But it was just more of a realization that, you know, this is not for me. And I'm being told, no, this door is closing.
Yeah. I mean, he exactly. does things the way he does them.
And I always thought, I was like, oh man, I could go for a third time. I've been asked a lot too. Like, what once you go for a third time? And I'm like, no, I don't feel led to that. There's other selections out there. Yeah, there is. And those are, those opportunities are there. And, so I closed that door, and I don't regret anything whatsoever. I mean, I've gotten a lot of hate online especially when the first podcast came out and I talked about selection, and everybody hones in on she failed. Oh, she failed. Failure. And yeah, no, I didn't make it, but I don't look at it as that.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for going through that twice. Again, like the process of getting to that point is what I love the most. That's where I get the most out of. And I just am so glad that I got that opportunity and that I was able to go and do that. I don't look at it as any failure whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear you talk about it positively. And the truth of the matter is, I know plenty of guys that have gone more than once. Every single one of them comes back with great stories about how much they learned, those land nav classes that you're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, if nothing more, you get so much out of that experience. But then let's not even talk about all the people that didn't even try to go.
Yeah.
Right. And
it's always those are the ones that are first to point out your failures too.
Absolutely.
But yeah. And I'm always glad to hear from somebody who like went through with me, because that has happened. You know, I've had people who have reached out, like maybe over social media or something, and it's like, I was in this class with you, or I remember you, or we went through SFAS. That has gotten back to me a lot. And it just goes to show that, you know, you reach a lot of people, whether you're trying to or not. And the way you act is your best business card, honestly.
Yeah, it all matters.
Yeah, it does. And I am really I'm very glad that I was able to go and do that. However far I got, it does me no good to think about it in a negative way. Yeah. Because I mean, it's just a waste of my energy, you know?
I'm sure there was so much positivity that came out of those experiences.
Oh yeah.
So for you to sit and dwell on the negativity behind it's ridiculous. Yet we tend to do that. I mean, you go back to
that leads you down a dark hole.
It sure does. Yeah. I mean, just the psychology that you were talking about with understanding there's certain aspects of where I'm at that are controlled, that I can't do anything about. These are the only things I can control. And the same rules apply to what you take out of your experience, right? You're the only one that gets to either take positive or negative out of it. Nobody else cares. It's all about you and how you perceive those things. So it sounds like you tend to take positivity out of every situation, and that's huge.
I do try to, and man, that's a tough ask for some things.
It sure is.
It really is. It's very difficult to do that, and sometimes it takes time to do that. It depends on, you know, situations that you're in and whatever you're experiencing. There definitely is always lessons and positivity to be taken from things, but there's, and for me too, there's been times where it has been difficult to do that, but really you have to come to that conclusion, because that's the only way that you can move forward. I think if I got bogged down with something that didn't work out, and it is tough to do that sometimes, it really is, because you thought that, you know, something was for you, or, you know, this was going to work out. It takes time, and you know, it can really hit you and cut you deep emotionally as well. But that's really the best way to not get bogged down, because I know that I will get bogged down in that and go down that hole and stay in that hole if I don't do that. And sometimes you got to allow yourself the grace and the time in order to do that, and that's difficult in itself, you know. Yes.
No, you're right. We get really caught up, especially in this day and age of instant gratification, needing just needing to know everything right now, and more often than not, if you can just take a breath, sit, and just be, you know, it'll solve a lot of your problems.
Yeah, it's hard not to ask why when something doesn't work out, and it really. And me too. Like, again, I do try to find the positives, but like I said, it has been difficult, and I've asked my fair share of, you know, why, and maybe you feel like you don't get an answer. And there's some things for me too that are still unanswered, but I really try to hold on to the fact that, you know, those answers do come. And I use my experiences in the 8 years that I've been in the Army of my question of why has been answered in where I have been placed since that failure or whatever that is.
Right.
And I'm grateful for that. And I think that will continue, because I do my best to trust that, God has a plan for me and that he knows what I want in all areas of my life. And that, if it is his will for me to have that, then I will. And it's so hard to trust him in that. There's a pastor that I love to listen to, Dr. Charles Stanley, and some of his, I YouTube his, some of his lessons and teachings, quite often, especially recently in the past year. I've really relied on some of his lectures, and it has reminded me that, all of these questions, the why, I can ask those questions. You can ask those questions, and that's fine. Yeah. But we also have to be open to the answers to those. And that's where it's difficult, because sometimes we just don't want to see the answer, or we want that answer to come quickly. Like you said, the instant gratification. And I have been reminded many times, as somebody who doesn't really have a whole lot of patience. that it comes. And so I try to take that same mentality into my failures and know that that's just, there's definitely plenty of room for that why question. And I'm definitely going to ask it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But eventually, it's going to show. I'm going to be shown that it's not worth getting bogged down over for too long.
Yeah. No, I agree. So out at 6th RTB, right? Mm-hmm. So after your year of pre-ranger cadre time, now you're going out to be an RI in Florida phase.
Yep.
How long have you been out there, and how's that going? I've
been there for 2 years now. It's going well. Every unit has their way of doing things, and Florida is definitely different. It's a great place to work. I really do enjoy being down there, and I love Florida. Who doesn't? Florida, I thrive in the heat and the humidity, and I love it. So I love being down there. It itself has its own challenges, and I really have, recognized that a lot. And I'm just really grateful that I've had the opportunity to be there. I'm only there for 3 years. So this will be my last year there, before I do the next thing. And, it's been fun. It was a little bit of an adjustment. When I first got there, understanding how, what their processes was and how we handle students and what we do and all of the work that is behind the scenes of a Florida phase. Yeah. Stuff that students don't see, all the logistics, everything that has to happen. And Florida has some crazy weather. So we have COAs, or courses of action, for anything and everything that we could come across. And then executing waterborne insertion, and then also assessing students that have already been through, Derby phase, mountain phase, and now they've come to Florida, the run phase.
This is the last gate.
This is it. Yeah. We're not really teaching you anything. We're letting you go and we're seeing, exactly, how much you've learned and if you can execute without that guidance. But yeah, it's a great place to work. And on top of that, I get to be a reptile handler, which in itself is pretty crazy. So I tell people I'm a zookeeper and an RI at the same time.
As well as landscaper.
As well as landscaper, you are correct about that. You are correct. Absolutely.
So how is it when you have to no-go a student? How does that go down? Do you feel like there's any more remorse from a student when you no-go them compared to when a male cadre does?
Probably. It's probably not fun to get a no-go from me. But, again, I kind of really don't think about it too much.
Any real pushback or anything?
No, not really. Not yet. I guess I haven't really always get the questions of maybe why or, in which I do my best to give a student an after action review or an AAR, after their look. If I have graded that student, I try to give them the best review of their performance. Mm-hmm. We don't tell them really if they've gotten their go or not. So we just give them the review, the brief, the review afterwards. And then, of course, they sign their OR, and then they find out later after the FTX is over. But it might hurt a little bit more, maybe some pride there if you really were terrible at your look. But I have the same, standard. The only thing different is my face.
Yeah.
And I want them to know that I'm not, grading them on anything else other than the tasks that I have lined up for them to execute for that day.
Yeah. So you just remain professional in the whole thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You have a job and you're there
absolutely.
to do your job.
It might be different to see me out there. There's only one, and you may not know that I'm there yet. I'm sure it looks different, but I mean, I went and through and did the same thing that all these students have done. I'm out there overnight with them, walking through the same mud. And, I definitely have more hair than they have doing it.
Right.
But yeah, it's the same thing. It might be a little bit more jarring to see, but I'm there, know.
So if I'm a student, do I want to get you as my grader or not?
Oh, I don't know. So when I came through school, I remember some of my RIs being like really mean or having a really mean look to them, you know, or yelling a lot. And I'm really not that way. I'm kind of more of a quiet. I wear sunglasses for the most part. I try not to be, I am an expressive person, so you can read my face, but I try to be better about that when I'm around students. Sometimes I'm bad at it, but like if something's really terrible, I'm probably showing it on my face. But I really try to be as cool and even and just non-distinctive as I can. So you really can't tell,
sure.
I definitely don't think that I'm a mean or really aggressive type one, but you don't really need to sleep on me too. Cause I'm watching what you're doing. Gotcha.
So outside of work, who are you?
Tired. Outside of work, again, one of my biggest hobbies is fitness, and I love doing it. I'm really big into CrossFit. I have a CrossFit gym that I go to in Fort Walton Beach. It's a bit of a distance away from my house, but I love doing fitness things. So I'm in the CrossFit gym a lot. I run a lot. There's a running group in Navarre that I go to a lot. I do a lot of volunteer work, or at least I try to when I have the time.
What kind of volunteer work?
I did join a volunteer fire department I live in Navarre, so I joined one around the area of Navarre, and so I'm still kind of new at that, but I wanted to do something within the community, and that just seemed like fun, so I did that, and so I've done some of the training with them when I can. Of course, everything is around my RI schedule, sure, which varies from class to class. So whatever I can fit in that schedule with the fire department, like I do. But I love my family, so I try to see my family as much as I can. Most of them are back in Mississippi. I have a brother, or one of my brothers is in the National Guard. He is an engineer officer, and I give him a lot of shit for being an officer, but not too much because I got to be his first salute, which was really special for me. But yeah, and so I don't get to see him very often, but I do try to keep in contact as best as I can.
You haven't got him to go through Ranger School yet?
No, I don't think that he's going to do it. He doesn't really want to, and I don't blame him at all. But I definitely tell him all the stories and everything that happens.
Well, I think he should do it. That's an opportunity. Again, I'd hate for him to have that regret. I
told him, I was like, hey, like if you're going to do it, I'm here. Now
do it while you're there.
Do it. I want to see you do it. I'm not going to help you, but I definitely want to watch you.
No, that would be epic.
Yeah. And lately I've been thinking about starting my master's. So I'm going to hopefully do that this summer. I have to just kind of pick where I want to do that and decide what I want to do. So I'm going to start my master's. I have JM that'll be coming up, or Jump Master that'll be coming up, doing that. And it's probably about time. I've got plenty of jumps. I just need to go do it.
Oh, I hated that school. It was great, but it was so hard.
I went once, and I think everybody goes more than once.
That was the school I felt.
Yep. I definitely did. I did one time, and then I was like, yep, well, I'll be coming back for this one, and that's okay. Yeah. I'm totally fine with it. Probably the more I come back, the better I'm going to be. That's probably the case.
That's a true statement. You're going to go through JMPI this time, and it's just it's
all
those
so deficiencies
easy.
are just going to pop out at me.
Yeah.
But I've tried to read a little bit more. I really enjoy reading, and I read textbooks, which is odd. But I try to keep up with my psychology, so I try to read on that a little bit. There's a book that I'm currently reading called Human Behavior, which is a fabulous book, and there's another book called Talking to Terrorists, which is this thick, but that's also a great book.
Oh, wow.
Gives you some insight into kind of how the mentality is for those types, which is a little bit heavy, but still a good topic. I think kind of fits in line with what I like to do. And then I do the reptile stuff, which is with work and then also outside of work, because we do a lot of work outside of 6RTB with the community. So that takes up some time too. But yeah, I have a pretty, I'm not going to say quiet life, but I try to stay busy, and
Are you getting more than 2 hours of sleep a night now? I
am, except for when I'm doing a walk, because our walks are like 24 to like 28, maybe 29 hours. But I think I finally reached the point or the age where I can't do the 2 hours of sleep every night and still be 100% functional unless I absolutely have to. And I've come to grips with that, because that was something I was really proud of, because it came in handy in Ranger school. It came in handy because I wasn't the sleepy Ranger. I was like up and ready to go and doing all the stuff I needed to do. But I think I've finally
catching up.
Yeah, I've reached the point where that's just not the case anymore. I can't do it.
Not manageable anymore. So are you thinking your master's in psychology then?
It's an option. I also thought about doing something that's kind of fits with psychology, or it incorporates it, but not exactly that. I thought about doing doing geopolitics, or something maybe in engineering, which is totally different. But I don't know if I want to continue just the psychology. I would like to do something I thought I might be doing intelligence someday, maybe with my job. And if I could pick a subject that kind of works with that, then I could. But it's at that point right now where I'm just kind of trying to pick what I want to do before that deadline for classes comes up. Okay, so you're at about 8 years now, you said. 10 years, usually kind of that cutoff where people make that decision, close. Right? What are you thinking? Well, I'm at that point, where I have to decide where I'm going to go. Now, if I were doing just the regular track for me, I would go back to like the 82nd, for example, to do platoon sergeant time. Right. And that is an option. It is an option. That is not my first option, not because I don't think I'd be good at it, or, I don't particularly want to do it. I just don't feel led to do it. Yeah. So there's a couple of other selections that I'm looking at that I want to do. And again, there's things that I thought, there's a place where I thought I would be at this point in my life, and some of those things have come true and some of them haven't. And that's all kind of led to some different hallways and some open doors that I didn't think I'd be looking at, but I am. And so I think that taking a crack at some of these higher tier things is definitely something that I'm going to be looking really hard at doing. And if that is not meant for me, which I hope that it is, if it's not, then I'll go and do something else. But right now, like, the plan is to stay military. Okay. Might not be doing the same MOS, might not be doing infantry, but I might be doing something else. But I do plan to stay military. Now, any consideration of going green to gold or changing over to being an officer? Since I thought about it, but I don't think I'm going to do that. If I did something along that line, I might like drop a warrant packet, maybe. Like, that is an option. It's kind of lower on my list, maybe, but I'm open to that. And go specialize in something. Yeah, something like that, I think. Okay. But I don't see myself doing. I do revisit it, I thought about OCS too, but I don't know. I don't think that it's for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. There, like you said, there's a lot of doors that are open that you probably weren't on your radar ever.
No.
Considering how your entry into the military came from a conversation with the Green Beret that you were training to, that started your first track. Now that you see all the things that are, all the possibilities that are out there, it's understanding why you might change and go a different direction. But you've already proven physically and mentally that you have what it takes to do really anything. Yeah,
and I'm really trying to listen to what God's plan is for me, or looking out for it, really, because again, like I mentioned before, there comes a point, I think, in careers where there's a lot of unknown, and the Army does have so many things that you can do, or the military and other branches too.
Yeah.
They have so many things that you can do, and there's avenues to get places, and you have to do things and accomplish things in order to get there. And so I think that sometimes it can be kind of confusing on to what can I do next?
Yeah.
What do I do next? And again, as somebody who likes to plan, I like to have a plan, and I like to have that plan early. And so, there's a lot of unknown, but then there's also, like I said, if you're open to it and if you work hard and you can put the effort into it, there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of things you can do. And those may not have been open prior, but they're out there.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what I'm looking at is where am I supposed to be next?
Yeah.
What do I do next? And I don't sit and wait for that answer. Of course, you have to, you have to take action.
You maintain your readiness.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's kind of what I'm doing. And I know that if I'm, again, kind of the theme here, if I'm working towards something, and even if I don't know exactly what that is, like we'll be ready for it when it gets here.
Yeah, I think, I could picture a whole lot of ways, a whole lot of directions that you can go, especially, just where we're at as a country right now and the things that are going on. There's plenty of opportunity to really specialize and utilize, so let me think real quick.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I'm hitting a couple of these questions. I had like a bunch of some rapid fire questions that I wanted. So if you don't mind, what's the biggest misconception about you?
Biggest misconception about me? Probably that I got to where I am today on any way other than my own merit. Probably that's what that is. And I don't think that's everybody that makes that assumption, but I think that's something that people probably do think. And that could be because they don't know me or they don't care to understand, what it takes to get to where I'm at.
Right.
But I would say that's probably one of the biggest ones.
Okay. So hardest day of your career?
Hardest day of my career. Oof. That's a good one. I know. So when I didn't get EIB, when I was taking that class, I still put so much effort into EIB, Yeah. I had paired up with somebody who was in my platoon and I worked really hard at it and I knew everything and I rehearsed and I shadow boxed and I did everything. And for something what I felt was so minimal and just stupid, I had to walk back all the way back to battalion with all my stuff. And I cried over that. I sat there and cried because it was just so much. And of course I was tired because I had that class going on too, but it was just so much that you put into that thing. And I thought, oh my gosh, just for that, I don't have this thing. I would say another time too was just recently one of my JM attempts, like JMPI definitely got me. And JM, like we talked about, is mentally taxing. You got to do it. You got to get everything. You got to do everything perfectly. You got to know everything. And when I'm doing something, I am doing it like
100%,
especially if I'm like gung ho for that, And I try to do that with everything. Sometimes it's harder to do it for other things than it is for, something else that you're just so invested in. And I was incredibly invested in that. And I also had some outside factors personal things that I was dealing with. And all of that just culminated into I failed JMPI. And I was devastated. Yeah. And that was, of all the things, Ranger School, SFAS, everything that I've done, that probably is one of the more mentally exhausting things. And it was just all of that emotion came out, and I definitely cried over that. And then, I cried for about 15, 20 minutes, and then I kind of dried it up and was like, okay, I'm probably good for 2 hours before I cry again over there.
I remember peeling out of the parking lot. I failed JMPI. I was at the 82nd. And when I went through, that was the last thing you did, right? So I'd already passed all the other tests. I'd put people out of the aircraft, right? Like I was done. All I had to do was just that get this last thing. And when I remember when I smacked the number 2 jumper, to move on to my 3rd jumper, and cadre, stop. I was like, my heart just,
same.
It dropped, right? And this was my last chance. It was brutal. I definitely, peeled out. I was like, F this place, I'm never coming back. Of course.
I was so upset. I held it together from the door that I exited out of all the way to the GSA that I had. And then I called a friend of mine who was tracking everything that was going on. And I just sat there. I don't even think I said anything. I was just so upset over it. And of course, I knew, I was like, okay, well, I'll be back. I'll just be back. And I am going back. And I know that these reps are probably really good for me. It just gets better. But
this is that one school where doing extra reps is going to be beneficial for everybody.
Oh yeah, and I'm fully aware of that. But I just put so much to it. I'm so hard on myself too. I am so hard on myself on things, and that just broke my heart. And I was like, I put so much effort into this. I feel like I've let everybody down. And he's like, it's not that big a deal. We just go back. And I'm like, but it is.
And that's what the guy was telling me too. He's like, bro, you're in the 82nd. Just come back next class.
Exactly.
I was like, no. I can't. It was horrible, right? It was like the whole sky is falling. Worst day of my life.
I walked back into the next class just with my head down like, I'm back. It's me again.
Right?
It's me again, God.
Roster number 1, class leader, right?
Yep.
I'll just be up here. So
I'm an alumni if anybody has questions.
So speaking of letdowns,
yes.
Do you feel like... What was my question? Yeah. Do you feel pressure to do you feel pressure like you're representing all females in the military?
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, so, I represent females for sure, because I am a female and I'm in the uniform, and I have all the respect for that. So there are definitely some things that I know that I will not do, because that's just going to reflect badly on the uniform. And
that is so awesome to hear.
Well, I think it's important, and that comes up a lot, especially with social media. I think and there's just a lot of things that I see that's disappointing to me, because there's a few females in the Army, whether you be infantry or not. We're not a huge population. So if one female does something that can not bode well for everybody else, because you kind of sometimes get put under the same umbrella,
Sure.
But I do feel that sometimes. But again, I know that the way that I am is not representative of how a lot of females are, And so again, I just try to be the best example of myself as I can be, and remember that, my experiences are my own. And I can definitely control what I do and how I present myself. So I do the best that I can. And that pressure can be, tough sometimes, just because of where I'm at. But it is a different challenge, and I am grateful for it. And it does come, with lessons learned. But, I'm very confident and grounded in who I am and what I want and how I want to be and how I would love to be viewed. And I understand that I can't control what other people are going to think about me, but I can control my presentation. No,
that's awesome. I appreciate you saying all that because it absolutely matters.
It does.
I remember negatively, getting to a place, getting to your team, getting to SF, whatever that looks like, and hearing, too bad you weren't here before. You know, it used to be so much better before somebody screwed it up, right? So you can have a positive or a negative effect, right? And you being the first female to be doing a lot of the things, it's going to have a lasting effect. They're going to make policy based off of things that you do throughout your career.
Yeah, sure. And I'll use 6 as an example. You know, I'm sure that was different for everybody to have a female after it being all male for so long, thrown into the mix of this, you know, cadre. And I'm in Charlie Company. So, and I've stayed in Charlie Company. And so for the ones that I work with, day to day in my company, I'm sure it was a transition for them, you know, completely. But I, you know, again, just tried to be myself and understand the environment that I'm in, because it is important to know the history of your environment. I don't expect everybody to change like that just because of my presence. I do understand that there is a adjustment period. And so I try to do my best to make sure that everybody understands that we all have mutual respect. But I can crack a joke just like everybody else. You know what I mean? And I think it's important for them to understand that I'm definitely here to do a job, and I have, you know, the ability to try to assimilate as best as I can while still maintaining femininity, still maintaining myself. I don't have to change in order to be here, and neither do you. Right. But we just have to make sure that we keep that respect, and 6 has been really good about that.
How do you deal with the dark humor behind the infantrymen? Because it just is what it is.
It's part of the culture. It is. For sure. Again, I can definitely crack a joke with the best of them.
I mean, dick and fart jokes.
Let me tell you, so the moment I make a joke, it just shocks everybody because nobody else can say it but me, you know. And like I said, within reason, I'm you know, I do my best to make sure that we read the room as best as we can. But when that room's full of infantrymen, I mean, pretty much almost anything goes.
Yeah, when in Rome, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you know, without compromising the way that I am or how, you know, I want to be viewed or treated, I think there's definitely, you definitely can develop the ability to be in the same space, make the same jokes, and understand that we're jokes and it's not that serious. Right. So not that offensive.
Yeah. With that line of thought, what are things that you've realized after being in the infantry for a while and being with nothing but Rangers and predominantly men? What are things that you've realized that you didn't expect along the way?
Things that I didn't expect. I think maybe I didn't quite expect there to be such a kind of standoff from me. Sometimes I can be kept at arm's length just because there's been instances or circumstances where, you know, something was taken the wrong way, and then somebody, you know, used a policy or, you know, some type of something.
I'm making an inappropriate comment. Off sex, off race, off whatever.
Off whatever the topic may be. Sure. And again, I have not been really approached with anything like heinous personally, you know? And so I think that there's a distinction between there's a joke and it's important for me to realize that this is a joke. It's not really that offensive and it's just the culture in a way. Or like, am I being completely disrespected? Does this require me to confront the person and we talk about it? You know, I have not felt that way. I felt that way one time and I did that. I am a confrontational person. I'm absolutely not scared to talk to people about something that I feel was disrespectful. Within reason. I mean, if it's like, you know, commander, which would never happen, I'm just like, no, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, I think that it's important to make that distinction and understand the people you're with, and kind of what the tone of that was, and use some tact as well, and understand that this is the culture that you're in. How can you either deal with this or change it if you would like to in an effective way?
Okay. So would you say that you've been, for the most part in your career, in a pretty professional military?
I would say, yeah, mostly yes. And there are definitely things that I have witnessed that where I would consider to be unprofessional, or so not a way I would handle something, or there's been decisions that have been made that I didn't like. And I understand that that happens. But overall, I haven't had any instances where things have been highly, highly unprofessional, or it wasn't something that I thought could be brought up and addressed and taken care of. I kind of also don't think I give off the vibe really that you can do something I'll say, for example, I've never been approached by somebody who's in my chain of command or leadership for anything at all that would put me in a position that I felt uncomfortable with.
Okay.
No
advances or anything
like that. Okay. No. And I'm glad that hasn't happened, but I also realized that if that did, I feel comfortable enough to handle it. I have been in a circumstance where I felt as if another soldier was being unprofessional, and I brought that up and we addressed that, and it turned out it was not easy to do, but it was something that I felt needed to be addressed in order to prevent it from happening to somebody else that may not have had the confidence to bring that up. I saw that a pattern of behavior was going to continue. And if I could identify it and speak up now, then I could prevent it from happening to maybe a private who didn't feel the confidence, they had the confidence to bring that up to somebody else, and that get progressively worse. And so I think that with every place that I've been, there's been, I overall haven't had any issues with unprofessionalism.
Okay, good. That's great to hear. So that kind of leads into my next question for the audience, right? For the young women at home that are watching this, what lesson do you want them to know about the military, or what do you want to leave them with?
If the military is something that you feel like you're being led to do, I think it is an amazing honor to serve your country. I think you need to love your country and understand what that service means to it. There's a lot of good things in the Army. I mean, you're going to hear a lot of stuff about the Army and how it's not great for women. And there is a place for women here, whether that be in an MOS, if you're a supply, or if you're, something else, combat, there is a place. It does take discipline. And I think discipline is something that benefits everybody, but young women, that discipline is so important for us. I think that for our confidence and for our success, and it's just overall, that's something that I feel like you need to have and you should have. And that translates into so many different parts of your life. You really, what a great thing to have. Yeah. If the military is also something that you are choosing, just, do the work, basically. The effort will never be, the prep, the effort for whatever it may be, that will never fail you. That is always something. It comes with lessons, and you need to be open to those lessons, but it's something that will never, ever fail you. There's a lot to be done here. There's a lot that you can do. It is a privilege. It's an honor. I love my country. I do. I've enjoyed my service. I'm glad that I've done it. And it's also important to try hard things. Yeah. Even if you don't make it, at least try it.
Get out of your comfort zone.
Get out of your comfort zone. Do something that's hard. Shave your head if you want to. That's hard. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. Try something else, but that would be probably some of my biggest advice. And I would stand by that for anything, really.
Okay. And I know you mentioned it's, the military is not for everyone. You wouldn't recommend everybody, go the route that you went. A lot of other countries, it's mandatory that you do 2 years as a conscript, whether that's, a first responder, traffic cop, or in the military. I am a firm believer. I think that is great for those countries. I think it teaches you a lot about I guess the jobs that people are doing, the sacrifice that gets made for the freedoms that you have. So I'm a big fan of kind of adopting that program. What are your thoughts on it?
I think that the fact that other countries have had women specifically in the military for a long time, much longer than we have, kind of is proof that there's definitely room for that. Like it works. It really does. I understand the argument. I really do. And there are a lot of times when I have, I've said it's definitely not for everybody. And I don't think everybody should go and do it if you don't want to, or if you don't feel like you're led to, or if it doesn't work out. But sorry, I kind of got off track. Can you repeat the question a little bit?
So the conscript, right? So the conscript program basically means that upon graduation from high school, at least in a lot of the countries, right, you've got to go do 2 years of civil service, is what they call it, right? Whether traffic cop or military.
So like if the United States like kind of mirrored that, if we wanted
policy to adopt that.
Yeah, okay, I do agree with that. If we did that, let's say we kind of mirrored that and we said, well, at a certain age, you have to come spend 2 years. I think that would come with a lot of benefit, right, for those individuals. They would learn a lot of things. They could, again, that discipline, that structure, that would be beneficial. The only problem I see with that is the fact that we're, as a military, are going to kind of take a hit, I think, with our quality. Because, and I'm not sure if I can explain this, but if you look at today's culture and today's this generation, it's kind of tough to see sometimes, right? Because I see a lot of lack of stability in families, which is tough and hard, and I think that affects the upbringing of kids. And then there's a lot of social media exposes kids to a lot of things, the instant gratification, and just kind of the way the society is right now. I think there's a lot of confusion when there really shouldn't be. And I think that would be kind of difficult to work with in that 2 years. Like if we, brought somebody who just graduated high school and they had to spend that mandatory 2 years. I don't think it can't be done, but I think it would require a lot of extra work and stress on the Army or the military, whatever branch it was that you decide to join. We'll just say that this applies to all of them. Yeah. But I also think that would benefit whether those, kids decided to stay in or get out after that 2 years. I do think that overall it would be very beneficial. I'm just not sure how many would actually stay with that, Yeah.
Without getting too far off topic, I guess the way I would picture is almost like state ran National Guard, where they run their own trainings, and then if people wanted to still sign up for the Army, whatever that was, then they can do that in lieu of doing their 2 years of civil service time. Anyway, I'm trying to come up with a way to get that generation out of the social medias, start giving them the structure that they've maybe lacked a little bit of, to, I guess, right the train, if you will.
Yeah, I understand that. It's hard to do that too, because social media is such a big thing. And I think social media is a good thing. It just kind of, it does pose different challenges, a lot of different challenges, I think, for upbringing. I mean, I didn't grow up with that. You didn't grow up with that. And that's probably why, I can look back on my upbringing. And while there wasn't such a presence, like when I was 7 or 8 or 9,
you were out hunting and fishing.
Yeah, I'm out running around. iPads. Yeah, running around and chasing siblings and playing sports. And while we still have kids who are doing that, the presence of social media is everywhere. Yeah, absolutely everywhere.
And so again, it's moderation, right?
Absolutely.
It's there's plenty of benefits to it, but it's got to be done in moderation.
Yeah, for sure, especially for the younger ages, I think. And again, I'm not a parent, so I don't really have experience, but I have experience not being on social media as a kid, and how I can look back at, I'm 32 years old and I can see like the difference between the way I was brought up, and I sound super old, I guess, but in the way, you see everybody else being brought up today too. I absolutely understand.
Yeah. I mean, there was just a big difference. So I asked you, what message you would leave for the young ladies out there. Same question. What message do you have for the young men out there that are considering this as a career?
I would probably tell the young men the same thing, the hard work and discipline, again, it never fails you. You may fail while you have it, but it's, that's what's going to drive you forward. Giving yourself, understanding that opportunities are there, you must take them and work towards them, and realize that may not be like the hardest thing. It may not be what you identify yourself as, but it does mean something. And I would probably say that if you're a male coming into the military, just try, just put some effort into it. Do the hard things.
Yeah. Okay. So before we close up, 10 years from now, what do you hope? What impact do you hope to have had?
Well, if we're talking about impact, again, I would hope that it would be nothing but positive. Again, I just would I'd like to be looked at. If I am remembered, I like to be remembered as a good example, as somebody who is somebody you could look up to if you decided to, whether you were a male or a female. Right. I do my best. I don't know where I'll be in 10 years, but I hope that, I would have had a positive impact on my students, on people who I've come across in any way, shape, or form. I may have resting bitch face, but I promise you, if you approach me, I'm not that bad. I want to have a positive impact on you. But yeah, I hope that it's something that somebody can look back and think, yeah, I think the biggest compliment to me is, and I've gotten this a few times, is if a father, maybe a fellow RI, or somebody who comes to one of our events at 6, says, my daughter looks up to you, or this is my daughter, I want you to meet her. That to me, or even they're kids at all, son, daughter. I just say daughter because I'm a female too. And right. Obviously there's not many of me out there doing this job, but that to me is right there. That's what I would like to be known for. I want you to meet my kids, or I want my kids to meet you, or, see this. And that's what I want. That's awesome. Yeah. You're definitely a positive role model. Oh, good. Yeah, you are 100%. So, for the audience, how do they find you? So they can find me. I'm pretty much just on Instagram, really. So my Instagram handle is JKiloj, KILOJ 12. It's pretty easy to find, I think. But that's really the only social media that I have. I don't mind if anybody wants to reach out or has questions or anything. I don't mind answering those questions. I do the best I can if I see them. But yeah, that's how you can find me. Awesome. Well, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming by and spending, a few hours with us. I know this is going to have a positive impact. The doors that are open now, I just think the landscape's changing. There's plenty of opportunity and plenty of room for females in what we're doing. Yeah. And I love it. So thank you for paving the way. And again, thank you for coming out here. Yeah, it's been a pleasure. I've had a great time. This has been a great conversation. I really have enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. Absolutely.